the 2 p.m. City Council meeting on November 29th. Sue, do you want to call the roll?
Udaly.
Here.
Fritz.
Here.
Fish. Saltzman.
Here.
Wheeler.
Okay, we will start with our standard city attorney greeting.
Got a lot to say today. Welcome to the Portland City Council. City Council represents all Portlanders and meets to do the city's business. The presiding officer preserves order and decorum during City Council meetings so that everyone can feel welcome, comfortable, respected, and safe. To participate in City Council meetings, you may sign up in advance with the Council Clerk's office for communications to briefly speak about any subject. You may also sign up for public testimony and resolutions or the first readings of ordinances. Your testimony should address the matter being considered at the time. When testifying, please state your name for the record. Your address is not necessary. Please disclose if you're a lobbyist. If you are representing an organization, please identify it. The presiding officer determines the length of testimony. Individuals generally have 3 minutes to testify unless otherwise stated. When you have 30 seconds left, a yellow light goes on. When your time is done, a red light goes on. If you are in the audience and would like to show your support for something that is said, please feel free to do a thumbs up. If you want to express that you do not support something, please feel free to do a thumbs down. Disruptive conduct, such as shouting or interrupting testimony or council deliberations, will not be allowed. If there are disruptions, a warning will be given that further disruption may result in the person being ejected for the remainder of the meeting. After being ejected, a person who fails to leave the meeting is subject to arrest for trespass. Thank you for helping your fellow Portlanders feel welcome, comfortable, respected, and safe. Okay, now the land use script.
Okay, thank you. Well, Sue, first read the item, and then we'll turn it back over to you.
Okay. Item 1215, appeal of Northwest District Neighborhood Association and Tony Schwartz against Historic Landmarks Commission's decision to approve Block 162 apartments, a 5-story plus residential development at 1727 Northwest Hoyt Street.
Okay, our city attorney will make some opening remarks.
Okay, thank you. This is an on-the-record hearing. This means that you must limit your testimony to material and issues in the record. We will begin with a staff report by the Bureau of Development Services staff for approximately 10 minutes. Following the staff report, City Council will hear from interested persons in the following order. We have 2 appellants today, so it's a little bit of a different order. The appellant 1 will go first and will have 10 minutes. Appellant 2 will then go and have 10 minutes. Supporters of the appellants will then have 3 minutes each, and then the principal opponent, the applicant here, will have 30 minutes, and other opponents will have 3 minutes each. Then appellant 1 will get a rebuttal for 5 minutes, appellant 2 will get a rebuttal for 5 minutes, and then we'll move on to council discussion. Again, I'd like to announce several guidelines for those who will be addressing the council today. Again, this is an on-the-record hearing. This hearing is to decide only if the Landmarks Commission made the correct decision based on the evidence that was presented to it. This means that you must limit your remarks to arguments based on the record compiled by the Landmarks Commission. You may refer to evidence that was previously submitted to the Landmarks Commission. You may not submit new evidence today that was not submitted to the Landmarks Commission, and if your argument includes new evidence or issues, you may be interrupted and reminded that you must limit your testimony to the record. The council will not consider the new information, and it will be rejected in the City Council's final decision. Objections to new evidence. If you believe a person who addressed the City Council today improperly presented new evidence or presented a legal argument that relies on evidence that is not in the record, you may object to that argument. Objections to new issues. Finally, under state law, only issues that were raised before the Landmarks Commission may be raised in this appeal to City Council. If you believe another person has raised issues today that were not raised before the Landmarks Commission, you may object to the Council's consideration of that issue. The applicant must identify any constitutional challenges to the conditions of approval. Additionally, if the applicant fails to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with enough specificity to allow the council to respond, the applicant will be precluded from bringing an action for damages in circuit court. That's it.
That's it? Okay, great. Do any members of council wish to declare a conflict of interest? Okay. No council members have a conflict of interest. Do any members of council have ex parte contacts to declare or information gathered outside of this hearing to disclose?
I have a specific not ex parte contact to disclose. I met with Historic Landmarks Commissioner Wendy Chung on April 5th of this year. We did not discuss the specifics of this case.
Okay. And does anyone wish to, in the council chambers, wish to ask Commissioner Fritz about this contact with Commissioner Wendy Chung? Okay. Have any members of council made any visits to the site involved in this matter?
I think I must have walked past it at least once or twice, but I did not specifically for the purpose of this.
Okay. So there are no site visits involved by council members. And so now we will begin with the staff report for 10 minutes.
All right. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Grace Jeffries. I am a city planner with the Bureau of Development Services. Today,
Sue, could you set the clock for 10 minutes, please?
Today I'll be providing basic context for this proposal for Block 126 apartments at 1727 Northwest Hoyt and summarizing the final findings and decision of approval by the Historic Landmarks Commission. My presentation includes a run through the context, then a more in-depth review of the proposal, and finally a quick description of the appeals. First, the context. So the subject site is located in Northwest Portland in the Northwest Plan District and the Alphabet Historic District. The site is zoned RH, which is short for High Density Residential. Because the site lies within the Alphabet Historic District, it has a historic resource protection overlay. Directly on the site lies the Buck Prager Building, indicated in solid red, which is considered a contributing resource to the district. Historic resources close by include, to the north and south of the site, across Northwest Hoyt and Irving, are individually listed landmark structures. That's indicated by the brown dots. To the west of the site, across Northwest 18th, are contributing resources indicated by blue shading. Non-contributing development is indicated in yellow. So zoning allowances for this site include a base floor area ratio, or FAR, of a maximum of 4:1. For proposals meeting inclusionary housing requirements, an FAR of up to 5:1 is allowed. The proposal is well under that at 3.6:1. The maximum allowed height is 75 feet, and the proposal is also well under that at 58 feet. Just as a note, this proposal is also subject to inclusionary housing requirements under Zoning Code Chapter 33-245, Inclusionary Housing. This chapter requires new buildings with 20 or more dwelling units and alterations to existing buildings that add 20 or more dwelling units to afford affordable dwelling units at the prescribed rates. Adjacent to the site, the northeast corner of the block is zoned EG1, which is general employment. It has a different zoning allowances than the RH zone. A modification is requested to landscaping setback for the proposed loading space adjacent to this property. I will speak more about this modification in a later slide, but just so you know, the zoning allowances for this site include an FAR of 3:1 and a height of 45 feet. There's also required side setbacks, which vary from 5 to 14 feet, depending on the size of the building wall. And there's required landscape buffers at side lot lines of 5 feet of L3 if the wall is less than 50 feet high, and 10 feet of L3 if the wall is over 16 feet in height. This land use review consists of 3 parts, each with its own approval criteria. For the historic resource review, the approval criteria are the community design guidelines and the Historic Alphabet District Community Guidelines Addendum, which is located in Appendix I of the Community Design Guidelines. These documents are separate from the zoning code but are referred to in Zoning Section 33-846-060E1C. For the 2 requested modifications, the approval criteria are found in Zoning Code Section 33-846-070, modifications considered during historic resource review. And for the requested adjustment, the approval criteria are found in Zoning Code Section 33-805-040. Here's a brief overview of the site. The total site area is 20,000 square feet. There's an existing building, the Buck Prager. On the site, there's also an existing 1-story structure to the north of it, which will be demolished. 2 surface parking areas, one on the north end and one on the south end of the lot. It has 3 street frontages. It has 200-foot frontage on Northwest 18th and a half-block frontage of 100 feet on Hoyt and on Irving. I'm going to take you through the context really quick, just to get a feel for what is there on site right now. This is a view of the southwest end of the site from the corner of Northwest 18th and Hoyt. You can see the painted brick front of the Buck Prager building facing Northwest 18th, and its exposed red brick side facing the existing surface parking lot to the south. This is a view from Northwest Hoyt showing that side elevation of the Buck Prager beyond the surface parking. And to the right, you can see adjacent residents east along Northwest Hoyt. This is a view of individually listed landmark houses across Northwest Hoyt from the site, which are part of the Trenkeman Houses group. This is a view north on Northwest 18th showing the First Norwegian Danish Church across from North 18th from the site, which is considered a contributing resource. And this is a view of the northwest end of the site from the corner of Northwest 18th and Irving. You can see the existing one-story wood-framed multi-dwelling building, which will be demolished to the north of the Buck Prager building. This also shows the existing surface parking lot at the north end of the site. This is a view of the individual listed landmark houses across Northwest Irving from the site, which are part of the Cooch Family Investment Development. And this is a view of the individual listed landmark houses across and down Northwest Irving from the site, the Campbell townhouses. This is a view west on Irving showing the existing one-story commercial structure to the east of the site, which, as noted earlier, is zoned EG1. Now I'll give a brief overview of the proposal. First, a bit of land use history. There was a previous land use decision by the City Council for this site. In 2014, the City Council denied a Type 4 demolition review for the demolition of the Buck Prager building, the existing contributing resource on the site. The top drawing shows that proposal with an overlay of this current proposal shown with the red dotted line. Project history for this current proposal: 3 voluntary design advice request meetings were held with the Historic Landmarks Commission. The applicant was very responsive to the feedback, undertook numerous changes to the proposal, including revisions to massing, height, and design refinements to better respond to the Buck Prager as well as the surrounding neighborhood and the district character. So the proposed development includes 3 structures. There's a 5+ story north building, that's the building in red brick. There's the Buck Prager renovation, that's the building that's light, in kind of a light cream color. And then to its right is the 4-story south addition to the Buck Prager. This structure is considered an addition because there are internal connections to the Buck Prager. So those 2 buildings to the right will work together. There are openings between them, and they function as one building. So it's considered an addition. Whereas the north building has no connections to this building, so it's considered new development. Additional reviews include a modification to bike parking spaces. This is a pretty common supported modification. It reduces the required spacing between long-term bike parking spaces from 2 feet to 1 foot 6 inches, and to provide non-lockable bike racks within the dwelling units. Second modification is to omit the required 5 feet of L2 landscape screening buffer required between the loading space and the adjacent EG1 property off of Northwest Irving. It's important to note that this is only for the required landscape setback at the loading space shown in the red arrow and the dotted line, so just a short part of that frontage. The new buildings themselves meet the required side setback minimums, so they're placed the right distance away, and landscape is provided the remaining length of the property line. The top image shows the concrete sidewall of the neighboring 1-story commercial building adjacent to the proposed loading area. This is a blow-up of that area, just to show that there's actually a required 5-foot pedestrian pathway, as well as the 9-foot required loading space throughout that area. So it's a very tight area. There's additional non-required landscaping noted close by along the frontage on Irving. There's also adjustment requested to the number of loading spaces. from 2 standard B spaces on the site to 1 standard B space. The code asks for residential developments 100 units or less. It requires 1 type B loading space. Because there's 100 units in the north building, shown in orange, the loading space is proposed to serve that population. The adjustment was requested to not provide on-site loading space for the 48 units in the Buck Prager and the South Addition, shown in blue, because this proposal is for senior housing studio apartments. PBOT found that these types of units have a much lower turnover rate, and being studios, not as much to move in and out. Also, PBOT's view of on-site Type B loading spaces has been evolving, and their experience has been that most are not being used for loading, but as trash and recycling area that has curb cut to wheel out the dumpsters. The curb cut for a Type B space is 10 feet wide with 6 feet wide commercial wings. This results in a 22-foot curb space that is permanently lost for private use. So PBOT would rather have control over how the curb zone is managed. And by allowing an on-street loading space instead, they can assign the hours so it's available to residents and visitors during peak times. And that adjustment was supported by both BDS and PBOT. The Portland Landmarks Commission voted 5-1 to approve this land use review. And now going to the appeal, the Landmark Commission's decision of approval with conditions was appealed by 2 parties. Both appellants cite 6 guidelines as not being met and 5 procedural issues. Guidelines all speak to the proposal's response to its surrounding context. In the final findings and decision summary, the Historic Landmarks Commission found the proposed development will retain and preserve the Buck Prager, a contributing resource in the Alphabet Historic District, and resulting multiple building frontage will add fine-grained scale to the block, which is a desired characteristic of historic development in the district. And the red arrow points to the Buck Prager. Now there's 5 procedural issues raised by the appellant. I have a response to each one of those. It looks like I might run out of time. Maybe I'll
Yeah, go ahead.
You want me to go through them? Okay. So I might go over my time.
Yeah, you already did.
The first one is, the application was declared complete when guideline P1 had not been addressed. So BDS's response is that deeming an application complete does not mean a closed record. It means that enough information has been provided on the drawings to begin a full review of the application. Further information can and usually is submitted after an application is deemed complete. There's approximately a 51-day period after completeness to a Type 3 hearing, and it would be an unworkable process if further information was not allowed after application was deemed complete. So the second procedural issue, the hierarchy of regulations was not followed. BDS's response is that the city's hierarchy of regulations gives guidance where regulations conflict. In this case, however, the Landmarks Commission found that no conflict between the historic overlay zone and the base allowances existed. 3, an incomplete history of the site was provided. BDS's response is that this review, regarding the Type 4 demolition review, this review was mentioned in the final findings, the design device request summary notes, and the staff presentation to the Landmarks Commission. In-depth findings of that review were not replicated in these final findings because unlike that review, this was for demolition of the Buck Prager. However, this proposal keeps that structure.
Could you put back the screen with the appeal conditions?
Sorry?
Yeah, can you move back? Yeah. Yeah,
Does that go okay?
No.
sorry, yeah.
Would you like the image of the appeal?
No, I think you inadvertently went to the questions screen.
Oh, sorry.
Before you ran through your.
Is that good? Okay.
There.
Sorry about that. Thank you.
Okay.
So I'm still on number 3, regarding the adjacent historic structures. There are no directly adjacent structures to this proposal. However, there are, as I pointed out, numerous contributing and landmark structures across the streets. These are noted under the analysis in the final findings and in the staff presentation to the Landmarks Commission. They're also referred to under specific findings, such as under the Historic Alphabet District Number 2, differentiate new from old. Number 4, public comments addressing approval criteria were not acknowledged or evaluated. BDS's response is that the neighborhood review section of the final findings lists the letters received prior to the issue of the staff report. In response to the letters, which reference the guidelines, rather than repeat detailed findings again in this section of the report, the findings were cross-referenced to instead. Staff response also notes that the following items are not relevant to the approval criteria. That includes the type of the housing, the amount of parking, and density. And number 5, harassment of one historic landmarks commissioner adversely affected the proceedings. BDS's response is that at the Historic Resource Review hearings, commissioners confirmed that they were able to make a fair and impartial decision. No concerns were voiced by the commission about being able to discuss the proposal freely, and no mention was made about the inability to apply the applicable approval criteria. So your alternatives facing you, you can deny the appeal and uphold the Historic Landmarks Commission to approve the land use review. You can deny the appeal, uphold the commission's decision to approve with additional conditions of approval, the land use review. You can grant the appeal and overturn the Historic Landmark Commission's decision to approve the land use review, thereby denying the proposal. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay,
Do you have questions for me?
questions?
Thank you for your presentation. That makes it much clearer than just reading the
Yeah.
hearings officer's decision and the evidence in the record. Regarding the loading spaces, on page 21 of the decision, it says that the minimum number of the purpose of the standard for 2 loading spaces is a minimum is required to ensure adequate areas for loading of larger uses and developments. And then the findings say that developments such as this, affordable senior housing consisting of studio apartments, tend to have minimal apartment turnover and less need for unloading larger furniture. But we don't have any conditions of approval saying that it is going to be affordable senior housing.
Right, and that is something that staff added. I mean, this was an affordable project put forward, so those findings would stand whether or not the term affordable was in there, because PBOT's findings really spoke about the size of the units, not the type of housing. So there are very small senior units, whether it's a small A or a big A, they're very small, so they're affordable, or they're affordable in terms of being supplemented by the Housing Bureau.
Okay.
So affordable is more along the lines of they're small units, they're residents who live in those type of units, don't have a lot of belongings because they're small. So move in and move out, PBOT found really wasn't, they felt that by putting that type B loading space actually was more detrimental, as I'd read through their findings, but
Okay.
they found it took away more curb space.
Okay, but then where will the apartments have their recycling and trash?
Well, so recycling and trash are within the building itself.
They
So
are.
every floor in the building has a trash room, and so on trash day, I would think the building management would then move that trash out to the street.
Put it in the
So,
street?
yeah, they're required by zoning code to have trash and recycling within the building.
Okay. And then on the bicycle rack modification, if these apartments are going to be for seniors, isn't that going to be difficult for them to be lifting the bikes up and down to have staggered bike parking?
I don't have the drawings in front of me. However, this is for the in-unit rack. Most of the units have in-unit racks. So there's an elevator that would take people up to their units.
No. There's a rack, and they're supposed to be 2 feet apart, and they're going to be 1 foot 6 inch.
Right.
Do we have somebody from PBOT here today?
I don't believe we do.
Okay.
However, it's a pretty common modification that we make.
I know I've seen it on multiple occasions, and every time I'm like, why do we have a standard of 2 feet if we're going to make it 1 foot 6 inches every single time?
And I think that's a
But
great
in this
point.
particular instance, if these apartments are going to be mostly used by seniors, it's even more difficult for those folks to be able to lift their bikes up to get it on the rack.
Right, and our zoning code allows vertical racks. So this is just the spacing between racks. So when they put vertical racks, they're allowed to have vertical racks. Our zoning code allows it. So the space is really just what we ask, instead of having the 2 racks equal, they have to stagger them. But they're allowed to do vertical racks at the 2 foot spacing, but they have to be staggered so the handlebars don't hit each other.
Perhaps I can have a conversation with the applicant about why they chose to have racks that are going to be more difficult to use rather than racks at the standard
Right.
width and fewer of them. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other?
I have a quick question. I just want to make sure I'm clear. You mentioned a commercial building adjacent to this development. that has ED1 zoning. Could you explain what ED1 is and what the FAR and height limits on that are?
Yeah, so EG1 is General Employment 1, and, sorry, I'll just find that. So the FAR for that northeast block of that site is 3-to-1, and the height is 45 feet.
Okay. And where is it? In, relation to?
Here's a picture of it.
Yeah.
That's the
So that's,
face that goes away from this.
so it's on
It's on the corner of Irving
Kind of.
and 17th.
17th.
Yes. Sorry.
Okay.
I know I have a diagram here. I apologize. Oh, it's at the, I'm sorry.
Oh, I
So it's
see.
where the
I
arrow
see.
is. Can you see how the EG1 zone cuts into
I
the
see.
site? And so that's where that one-story existing building is located.
I
But
see.
it could be redeveloped.
That-
Or it could stay the way it is.
Solves my question because I was a little confused about the modification with the greenery.
Yeah,
but-
right, the
okay.
landscape adjacent to it.
Could I see that photo again?
So that's the area. The loading space is shown in orange-ish yellow, and the red dotted line kind of swoops around that area. So the zoning code requires a 5-foot landscape setback in that zone between this and the adjacent
Setback
property.
From, the adjacent property.
Yeah.
Okay.
So here is a blow-up of that, what happens in that zone. So in that zone is that 9-foot loading space, and then there's a required 5-foot pedestrian path, hard path, to access the back of the building. So
Okay.
it's a tight area.
Yeah.
The remaining property line, the length of it does have landscaping, but it's just this little top corner.
I was disoriented when you were going through
Yeah,
this
I know that-
slide, so now I totally get
Vertical
it. Thank
and,
you.
yeah, I apologize.
Yeah.
I had the same question, so thank you for asking it.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, well, if there's no further questions, we will hear first from Appellant 1, which will be the Northwest District Association. And if you can, welcome. So if you just, when you're speaking, if you can each just give us your name, and then you have a combined 10 minutes, and I believe there's a clock right in front of you there.
Sorry, I'm out of practice.
Yeah, really.
Commissioners, I'm Greg Tyson, co-chair of the Northwest District Association Planning Committee. Affordable housing and historic preservation are not mutually exclusive. We're here to tell you we support high-density housing throughout Northwest Portland. City Council is responsible for supporting affordable housing and protecting historic resources, which is the dilemma of the case you have in front of you here today. And we believe you can balance these goals, and that by doing so will ensure integrity, livability, and the continued special character of Portland. And in the context of a housing crisis that is 10 years in the making, NWDA is proud to have supported the over 3,500 new housing units that have been built in the neighborhood since 2010. This is more housing units than any other neighborhood by far, including our neighbors to the east in the Pearl District. From Everton 14th, Gleason and 19th, Johnson and 19th to Slabtown, we work to preserve historic resources and allow high-density housing.
So today we're going to give you,
Could you give us your name, please?
oh, sorry about that. Joselle Johnson, I'm a direct neighbor and also part of the NWDA secretary. Today we're going to look at the overview of what we're telling you about our neighborhood, the criteria, the errors, and the conditions. First, I want to talk to you about our neighborhood. It's a unique neighborhood because it's the first area in Portland that actually rental houses and investment houses were made. So the fancy mansions on 19th came and gone, but the Kuchik additions that they invested in actually remain. So as you look at the pages here, each of the blue lots is a historic lot. The red houses are individually listed or contributing to the Alphabet District. If we walk down our neighborhood, much of what was in the 1800s at the end of the last century still remain. We have the Cooch additions, the only brick townhouses that are in Portland, which are the Campbell townhomes. Looking down 18th to the south, we again see things that we would have seen in our historic area. The picture on the lower left is actually the lane of the cornerstone to the Blue Church. And those are the Trenkman houses that you see actually directly in front of the units. What we also have there are the Morrison investment homes that wrap around that are directly adjacent to the property. So one of the things we want to be real clear, historically the Northwest has been the most dense residential neighborhood, not only in Portland, but in all of Oregon. We are the largest concentration of individually listed properties in these 6 blocks. And this proposal would present overly large buildings that go right through the middle of this historic area.
Hi, I'm Jessica Richmond. I'm a member of the Northwest District Association. I've owned and lived in a condo a block from the site for more than 30 years. I'm also a city planner and retired a few years ago, as some of you remember, after working nearly 30 years for the city and writing many of the regulations you administer. We request that you deny this proposal because the approval criteria are not met. I'm going to go through, oops, wrong direction, sorry. I'm going to go through some approval criteria very quickly. Historic Alphabet District Guideline 2, differentiate new from old, the text of the guidelines in front of you. This is not met because the new structures are way out of scale with nearby buildings and have other incompatible features listed on the slide. The findings do not even mention the 13 adjacent structures that are individually listed on the National Register and called out in the context statement for this district as shown on your screens. Historic Alphabet District Guideline 3, Hierarchy of Compatibility. The guidelines on your screen, it calls first for compatibility with the original resource, in this case, the Buck Prager building, second with adjacent properties, and finally with the rest of the district. It's not clear whether new development has to meet this hierarchy. However, that doesn't matter because based on the definitions in the zoning code, adding a building to a site where there is already development, in this case the Buck Prager building, is considered an exterior alteration. The findings erred in considering it new development, but it wasn't clear in the findings or the hearing that that's why they were not addressing compatibility with the Buck Prager and the immediate neighborhood, because at no time until a recent letter from the applicant did anybody say, oh, we think the north building is new development. The zoning code, of course, is part of the record, and these definitions are from the record. The north building is an exterior alteration and failed to meet the hierarchy. Regardless, as shown on this slide, neither structure meets the approval criteria, and the hierarchy is not even addressed for the north building.
Thank you. Could I interrupt for one moment, please, and you may stop the clock? I just want to thank Commissioner Saltzman for running the start of the hearing. I'm going to assume the responsibilities of the presiding officer at this point, and I'd like to state for the record that I have neither any conflicts of interest to declare, nor do I have any ex parte contacts. But I want to give anybody who is present the opportunity to ask me any questions about that if they have any. Seeing none, thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
Okay. Again, the South Edition and the New Edition, some more information about the issues of their compatibility and so on. Community Design Guideline P1, again, the text is in front of you, and this approval criterion is not met. You have an excerpt from the desired characteristics statement in front of you, and this design clearly does not comply with the desired characteristics and tradition of the area. This slide shows you more about the eastern edge and the existing urban pattern in that area. Development that responds to the desired characteristics and traditions would be less massive, more to scale of the surrounding buildings and the Buck Prager itself, set back as existing development is, and would pick up more design cues from the many historic homes adjacent to the site. Community Design Guideline P2 calls for designs that reinforce the area's historic significance. This quote from the background statement explains what the guideline means. The guideline is not met by sandwiching the Buck Prager building between two overly large buildings or by placing those large buildings in the middle of a nearly intact cluster of historic homes. In relation to this criterion, your previous findings just 3 years ago were for a demolition review, but also addressed in detail what the council thought would be appropriate on that site, which is why we thought they should be included in the staff report and in the commission's decision. Those findings noted the many historic buildings that surround the site, stated that the then proposed 4 to 6 story building was not acceptable for many reasons, including being severely out of scale. That's a quote. We think these findings apply even more so to this proposal. However, they were not even considered as part of this review. Community Design Guideline D6, Architectural Integrity. Again, you have the text in front of you. And again, this criterion is not met, and it's the reverse of respecting the character of the existing building, with new structures totally overpowering the Buck Prager and adjacent historic homes. Again, what I just said about good development applies here. The South Edition has a host of problems listed on this slide. Community Design Guideline D7, blending into the neighborhood. Again, the text is in front of you. And again, the criterion is not met for a host of reasons, primarily the large-scale height, lack of setbacks, and many details. This table shows some of the details as to why the guideline is not met by this proposal. There were a number of procedural errors that Grace addressed, or that Grace responded to. We know that there is time for additional information. However, failure to address a guideline entirely, we think, is a reason that an application should be determined incomplete. We request that you deny this proposal, but if you do approve it, excuse me, we ask that you attach a condition requiring that they do what they say that they are going to do, build housing affordable to 60% of median family income. A quick response to Commissioner Fritz's questions. This approval without this condition would not require that the housing be at any particular rent level and would also not require that the units be studios. They could build 2 bedrooms within the shell that's approved. Is there a nexus for this condition? Not directly in the approval criteria, but certainly in the way this proposal has been presented, discussed, reviewed, and considered. Discussion of affordable housing has pervaded all aspects of this case, and even in the wording of the approval, and even in just the few minutes of discussion this council has had. Well, the affordability...
If I could
Yes.
interrupt for a moment.
Yes.
Technically, your time is up. But
May I request another 60
What we
seconds?
typically do is allow you to continue, and then we'll have the principal opponent have an equal add-on.
Of course.
So please
Thank
feel
you.
free. Thank you.
While the affordability should not be considered, it is difficult to ignore that aspect of the proposal, even for us, especially given the current housing situation in Portland. We found it difficult to be as critical of this design as we would for market rate housing, and we don't really expect you to ignore that aspect either, even though we all should. However, once a design is approved, any developer or landowner can come in and build this design, and it can be market rate, 2 bedrooms, etc. To assure that the housing is indeed affordable, we are asking for that condition of approval. And again, it is based on what they've said that they would do. You may want to ask the applicant if they would accept the condition voluntarily, as again, it's just what they're saying they will do. And if they're not willing, their reasons would be of interest. In conclusion, because the immediate neighborhood is a unique slice of Portland, thank you, because the approval criteria are not met and because procedural errors were made, we request that you deny this proposal. And thank you. We'd be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Commissioner Saltzman.
Well, I had a question, Jessica. I mean, this site, as they said at the outset, is going to be subject to the inclusionary housing requirements.
Yes.
So,
That only
and you're asking for a condition that says all of it would be 60% affordable?
Right. The
Is that right?
inclusionary housing would require that 20% of the units be at 80% of median family income. But we think that their proposal that all of them be at 60% of MFI has colored all of us, all of our perceptions of this project, and has made us less harsh in our judgment of it because we know that the need for affordable housing is so dire. But we are concerned that if, for example, they were unable to get funding, because they have not yet secured funding, if they weren't able to get funding, that approval would be sitting there and another developer could come along and say, oh, wait, we got this approval, let's build this for market rate. And that's our concern and the nexus.
Okay, well, I guess we'll hear from the applicant at some point, but even if that were, the scenario you just described were to occur, the parcel would still be subject to inclusionary housing if it was to transfer to a new owner.
Right,
with
but then we
approval.
would get a much smaller number of units at higher rents, and 80% of the units would be at market rate. And if the initial proposal was for simply a market rate proposal, then we believe that we might have been harsher in our evaluation, the Landmarks Commission might have been, and this council might be, because it is such a persuasive and dire need.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Daley, did you have a question?
I don't think so. I guess I'm always a little concerned with asking questions that might introduce new information into the record, so I err on the side of not asking questions.
You could
Lauren,
whisper
will
them
you
to the city
reprimand me?
attorney.
Yeah.
Go ahead and ask.
Full disclosure, I lived in this neighborhood across the street from Jessica for 18 years,
Yes.
so I'm very familiar with it, but I did
We
not.
miss you.
Oh, thanks. Never owned property, have no interest, financial interest in the area, and don't make it back to Northwest Portland very often these days. I'm an East Sider now. The historic district is much larger than this specific area we're talking about, and there are newer developments, like the one that you live in. Well, not as new anymore.
1980.
But how many stories is that? 3 or 4?
There's a grade change, so it's multiple levels, so it ranges from 2 to 4 stories.
And then there was a redevelopment on the southeast corner of 19th and Hoyt. How many
Park
blocks is that?
19.
Yeah.
That is
I mean,
6 stories.
stories,
And
yeah.
at the time, Mr. Joslin, who was in charge of the design section of BDS, erroneously told the Landmarks Commission that they did not have authority to reduce the height or floor area, even though that was not true, and he later changed his mind on other cases, and I clarified the code to make it super crystal clear instead of just crystal clear that they had the authority. But because the Landmarks Commission agreed with him or listened to their staff, they approved the building at that size, also noting that there was a park across the street that helped to mitigate it.
So, counsel, we did receive an objection from the applicant, and staff have both identified that all of this information you're getting now is new evidence and was not before the Landmarks Commission. So,
Okay.
The issue about Park 19 was discussed at the Landmarks Commission, as was,
But in the context of this particular...
yes, and I
Okay.
specifically talked about Mr. Joslin's advice to the commission.
I'll stop asking the
Yes.
questions. It's been a while since I've seen this area, and I was just trying to put this development into the larger context, because yes, the adjacent blocks have small-scale, single-family residences, but the fact is there are also large multifamily developments quite nearby. Okay, thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for the additional time.
No worries. Next up is appellant number 2. I understand that's Tony Schwartz. Thank you for being here, and if you can keep it as close to the 10-minute time frame as possible, I'd appreciate it. Any extra, I will add on to the additional 2 minutes and 3 seconds that the principal opponent will have.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Tony Schwartz. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Commissioners, I am an appellant, and I would assert that this case is ultimately about fairness. It's about equal justice under the law, no more and no less. The law must be applied equally, uniformly, without passion or prejudice. As now deceased
I'm going to
develop-
have to have you stop for a second because the
Oh,
clock's
I'm
not
sorry.
running yet.
Is it distracting?
Sorry.
No problem.
Oh, where's Sue?
Oh, and Mike?
Oh, there she is. Oh, she's working on the technology. One moment. Sorry, Mr. Schwartz.
No, that's fine. Thank you. So I was
We
gonna
were
say-
listening to that first part, so you got an extra 20 seconds or something.
Oh, and I was about to say the time didn't start, so we... Thank you, Commissioner Fritz. I wanted to say that the rule of law, I'd like to start off by saying about the case is about fairness, and the time has now started. As now deceased developer and preservationist Art DeMuro stated after the final vote on the Blanchet House, we need to be blind to the applicant and the mission. The rule of law requires that commissions, city councils, judges, reviewing bodies apply the law consistently without favor and are blind to the applicant's relative worth or goodness. Otherwise, the law will be used to reward some, suppress and harm others, and contribute to an increasing distaste and distrust with our system of government. I suggest that in this case, the political winds surrounding housing and the applicant's goodness or worth overwhelm the Portland Historic Landmarks Commission and has the power to overwhelm this city council. I heard today for the very first time from staff that the affordability that the applicant has been proposing is not essentially below market rates. They are affordable in the sense that they are cheaper than normal. We had never heard that in the 3 DARs or the land use application. That's the first time I heard that. I will tell you that the burden of proof is on the applicant to show with substantial evidence that each and every element of the applicable approval criteria will be satisfied or has been satisfied. I think some background is important in this matter. This site has been addressed by this body before. In 2014, the landowners and the applicant requested for demolition of the Buck Prager building and a replacement building on that site of 4 to 6 stories. There was a substantial amount of time and energy that went into opposing the demolition of the Buck Prager and opposing the replacement of the 4 to 6 story, saying that it was out of character and overwhelming within this unique site that has 13 individually listed landmark homes. This city council, after the Landmarks Commission agreed to not demolish the Buck Breaker, this city council also agreed. And in its findings, it spent a substantial amount of time saying that the 4 to 6 story replacement building was severely out of character. I use those words because those were this body's words. And I want to go through it not only for you folks, but also the folks in the room and who may view the record. On page 23, the findings state the proposed replacement building would not enhance the character of the neighborhood as it is wholly incompatible with regard to its proposed scale, massing, form, and character. On page 25, this body stated, council also noted that the existing building is appropriately scaled for the historic district, and the proposal to demolish did not include a compatible replacement building, particularly with regard to the adjacent landmarks. On page 25, I'm sorry, I think we went to page 25 too quick. That was on page 24. On page 25, where we are now, the existing historic building and the existing non-contributing resource are considered small-scale developments. The proposed replacement building is a rather large-scale development at 4 to 6 stories tall. A smaller scale and more appropriately scaled development would potentially include 2 to 2.5-story row house-type development, which takes cues from the neighboring landmark buildings. Again, the council noted that the RH base zone was not necessarily an entitlement, and new multi-dwelling developments, while generally desirable if located within a historic district, must be compatible with the surrounding historic resources. On page 27, this body stated the compatibility of the proposed replacement building should be considered primarily with regard to its compatibility with the landmark structures rather than other nearby buildings of lesser significance. The proposed replacement building is not integrated with the existing urban fabric and is not set back from the street. It does not feature intricate architectural detailing, and most significantly, it is much taller and more massive than the modest landmark residential structures in the immediate vicinity. And finally, on page 30, in its conclusions, this body stated, while the existing historic building is an appropriate scale for the adjacent properties, i.e. the Buck Prager, the proposed replacement building is severely out of scale and character and would significantly detract from the historic character of nearby landmarks. That proposed replacement building was 4 to 6 stories. This building that is being proposed is 4 to 5.5 stories. In particular, you can look at the site, you can look at the drawings, look at the north building. The north building starts at 58 feet to 60 feet on Northwest Irving. It's a 58 to 60 foot square. The replacement building in 2015 that this body said was too big started at 4 stories and stepped back to 5 stories and then stepped back to 6 stories. The building now on the north side of the site likely has a larger FAR than the proposed replacement building that you denied in 2015. I would tell you that many people spent enormous amounts of time in 1999 and 2000 setting up the Alphabet Historic District. And many of those same people were involved in 2015 and are involved today. That's why I'm here, to tell you that in our opinion, in my opinion, that it is unfair. It is unfair to all of those people. It's unfair to the district. It's unfair to the city to once again try to push through a 4 to 5.5 story building when this body said essentially that kind of building is too big. Affordability was draped all over this program. I always assumed that they were trying to promote 0 to 60 MFI. Every single unit in this building is a studio. Every single one. Of course, it's going to be affordable in the sense that it's cheaper than a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom, and of course we need housing. But I don't want to get into that argument because right now we're talking about the criteria. But make no mistake about it, there's not a single person that doesn't want development on that site, not a single person that's happy that the Buck Prager will be seismically upgraded and rehabilitated, and not a single person that doesn't want truly affordable housing there, or affordable in the sense that it's cheaper than normal. There's more background. This is all on the record. This commission, at least 2 folks were here in 2016 when Joe Zender promoted right zoning, the north side of Gleason and the Alphabet Historic District, from 4 to 1 to 2 to 1. So there wouldn't be an incongruity between base zoning and overlay zoning. This body declined that request, essentially, in my opinion, punting the zoning conflict. So the punt went back to landmarks in 2017 with this current program. There were multiple DARs where the commissioners wrestled with the idea of the guidelines, the program size and mass, with the base zoning and the need for affordability. Multiple commissioners were concerned at the very last DAR that the north building in particular was too large, that it was overwhelming. 3 commissioners specifically said that, yet in the final vote it was 5-1. I don't know what happened, but I would suggest to you the political winds of housing and affordability overwhelmed the commission. That's why in the final findings there is replete references of affordability. Affordability is not a criterion. It's not a criterion. I would argue finally on that point that if this body approves this current program, its decision would be arbitrary and capricious, given its 2015 findings. That its 2015 findings were designed to guide neighborhood associations, neighbors, developers, landlords. That's what the law is designed to do, to set guidelines and guideposts for development, for behavior. I would argue that on a second topic, just briefly for the record, that the north building itself did not receive the appropriate analysis required under Historic Alphabet Guideline number 3, which is entitled Hierarchy of Compatibility. This was a main point of my personal appeal, besides the fairness, but I would argue and put on the record that there is plain error at this point in the applicant's presentation, because there was always an assumption, and I went along with it until just last night, that the north building was new development, not an exterior alteration. I looked at the Portland City Code, the Zoning Code 33, last night, and I've come to the conclusion that the north building is an existing alteration, not new development, and therefore should have gone through a more extensive analysis with the hierarchy of compatibility, and specifically comparing the north building and its size to the Northwest Irving landmark structures that are adjacent and contiguous to the north building. So I put that on the record. I didn't realize that until last night, but I would argue there's plain error. I would, as an appellant, I would open this body to go to the site, walk around the site. It's 1.3 miles from this city hall. Commissioner Udaley lived there, has some memory of it. Look at the landmarks, envision a 60-foot building on the north side. I think you will come to the conclusion that it is too large. Those are designed for workforce apartments right now, which, as this body knows, is sort of an amorphous term and most likely means market rate studio. This body said in 2015 market rates apartments in the replacement building was not good enough. I ask you to deny the program or otherwise work with all the parties so we can get this program or a slightly different program into development as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Members of the council, the applicant did object to the argument that the north building is exterior alterations, not a new development. That is an argument that was not made before the Landmarks Commission. City staff can speak to that argument a little bit more, but it is, if council has questions, but it is a new argument.
Very good. All right, next up are supporters of the appellants. How many people do we have signed up today, Sue, both for supporters of the appellant and other opponents?
For supporters, we have 7 signed up, and for opponents, there are 14 signed up.
7, 14. Why don't we do this? Let's try to keep our testimony at 2 minutes each for all sides of this, and it's best if you can speak your mind in 2 minutes anyway. It's not easy, so think long and hard about what you want to say and what your key points are. You don't necessarily need to repeat points that other folks have already made because they'll be in the record and they'll be here for consideration. So it's always good if you can make new points, but that's up to you. and it's best if I don't have to play microphone police. So when you see the red light go off, if you could please wrap up your remarks, I'd appreciate it. Why don't you call the first three, please, Sue?
First three, please. Michael James, Joe Warren, and Vicky Skaya, if I have that name right.
Thank you for being here. Good afternoon.
I'll start. My name is Michael James. I'm a 20-year resident of Portland. I live 2 blocks from this project, and I'm delighted to have an opportunity to speak to you. I testified before the Landmarks Commission. I've been to meetings. I am not a member of Northwest District Association. However, I am here today because I strongly hope, as I testified and as I wrote all of you in an email, that you will hold back on approving this. The Landmarks Commission, how they approved it, I don't know. They certainly disregarded their criteria in terms of scope and compatibility, and I really hope you will come out and walk this block. This is a treasure of Portland, and what is proposed there in terms of scale and compatibility is just, it's a monstrosity. I support affordable housing, and the other part of my argument is, and I believe I'm allowed to say this, I think this is a bait and switch. We need affordable housing, and this site would be great for affordable housing. But there are no deed restrictions and there are no conditions here that would require these people to do anything other than say, we're going to give you affordable housing. They're going to give you market rate bait and switch. And I, as a taxpayer who believes that every neighborhood has a responsibility to provide affordable housing, let's make sure we can get it there. And it would be nice if it didn't look like a woman's prison, but I think it could be great, and I hope you'll stand firm and apply the law and reject this proposal and reject it and let them rework it so that it could be pleasant and have affordable housing in it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Fritz.
You have 30 seconds left. I wasn't able to read your email because we're not allowed to read things that are outside of the record. So for anybody else who has sent me information, I usually try to read things ahead of time, but for this I haven't. So was there anything else that was in your email that you wanted to make sure the council's aware of?
I primarily had the 2 arguments because having attended a number of meetings, I never really understood that they were going to push the affordable housing. And when the Landmark Commission approved this, I was flabbergasted because the testimony was so strong that they were totally not meeting any of the criteria for this building.
Thank you.
Yeah, and please come see it. Come walk in our neighborhood. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. My name's Jill Warren, and I own the 10 units of rental property across the street in the historic church and parish. When we bought our buildings, we received a 59-page document from the Department of the Interior of Standards and Guidelines for Rehabilitating Historic Buildings. And I printed out copies for you to review. They're very restrictive covenants. One is limiting any new excavations adjacent to historic foundations to avoid undermining the structural stability of the building or adjacent buildings. When Park 19 was pile driving for new construction a block away, the pounding loosened the pipes in my building on Hoyt, causing leaks. I had to hire a plumber to tighten them up. My historic church is across the street on 18th Avenue, and I'm concerned about damage to the stained glass windows that were brought over on a ship in the late 1800s by Norwegian immigrants, or other structural damage. My historic buildings are fragile. We've testified in front of the Historic Landmarks Commission several times, and they've concurred with us time and again until it was announced that the new construction would be used for affordable housing. Nowhere in the standards for rehabilitation grants exceptions to the covenants based on who the tenants are. The standards are so restrictive, I'm not allowed to make major changes to my buildings due to their historic status. And the historic rentals are the last bastion of affordable housing in that area. My top rent for a 2-bedroom is $1,650 a month. Park 19, their top rent is $4,500 a month. So we're caretakers of these historic landmarks, and we need to maintain their value. Massive new construction would dwarf surrounding buildings and compromise the neighborhood. I see tour groups taking pictures and admiring the architecture. Massive new construction would dilute the historic value, and once it's gone, it's gone. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Vicki Scria. I live across the street in one of the Trinkman homes. I want you to know that I'm an ardent...
One moment, I'm not sure the mic's working.
Oh.
And we'll restart the clock
I'm sorry.
for you.
Did I lose my 10 seconds?
Not at all.
Okay. My name is Vicki Scria, and I live across the street in one of the Trinkman homes. I want you to know that I'm an ardent supporter of affordable housing, have been so for 40 years. I've worked in the field. I have been an affordable housing consultant, a housing and homeless services manager at the state, and a director of permanent supportive housing evaluation project, and have talked to a lot of, it was part of my job, talked to a lot of people that live in housing. I'm asking that you reverse the HLC decision and deny the proposed design. I commented extensively in my comments that are on the record, and you've already heard like what some of the main points are why this design does not meet the criteria. I wanted to talk a little bit about how expensive it is to build affordable housing these days. When I was a housing consultant and worked on several complexes that still exist today in Portland, I had a straightforward, no-frills approach. What I tried to do was roll up my sleeves, look at all the requirements, make sure that before I moved a project forward, that it moved forward, that it met all the requirements. And I guess I feel not very good that this project has taken so long, that there's been so many meetings with teams of lawyers where neighbors have been accused as NIMBY when we really support an affordable housing project and would love to see one that is at an appropriate scale. On the record, there's been shared 2 projects that NHA previously did. One is the Oak Ridge project in Lake Oswego that has 45 subsidized, spacious 1-bedroom apartments on a 29,000 square foot lot. Then there's the Alma Gardens project in Hillsborough that has another 45 spacious 1-bedroom apartments on a 31,000 square foot lot. Just in comparison, this has 147 units, all scrunched down on a 20,000 square foot lot. I think we could stop wasting a lot of time, be much more straightforward, get those units on the ground if all the criteria are met. If it's not, and this project moves forward, there's going to be continued obstacles because the federal funding subsidies that might be applied for require adherence to federal standards like Jill mentioned, and what was approved under the criteria are not inconsistent with those federal standards. So thank you. Sorry.
Thank you.
And next we have Dan Anderson, Richard Uren, Jessica Richmond.
Good afternoon. If you'd like to go ahead and start, sir, you may.
Sure. Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I'm Daniel Anderson. I live 2 blocks from the project site. I've lived in this neighborhood since 1981, both as a renter and as an owner. I support the development of scale-compatible, bona fide affordable housing in my immediate neighborhood. The proposal before you today is unlikely to deliver either of these outcomes. Because of this, the City Council should reverse the landmark decision and deny this proposal. You should do this for 2 reasons. First, the development fails to meet multiple mandatory review criteria in the community design guidelines and in the Alphabet Historic District addendum. Secondly, the proposal and the record, while making repeated references to the project as being affordable housing, includes no protections to ensure that the result will be anything other than full frontal market rate rental housing. The Council should take steps to immunize itself and the public from being party to a bait-and-switch scenario wherein the Council is baited to overlook dubious design and massing aspects of the proposal because the proposal might supply affordable housing. In today's development cost environment, delivering affordable housing depends on access to significant public subventions. And despite multiple applications for these by the developer, these subventions have yet to be forthcoming for this project. Because the project's history of difficulties in securing the necessary public subventions, there's a very good chance that the project will be switched to the type of market rate workforce housing which the market is already supplying in quantity in this neighborhood. In short, we'd get an incompatible building which fails to deliver affordable housing, a worst of both worlds outcome. The council could immunize itself and the public against such a bait-and-switch outcome by requiring the applicant, as a condition of approval, to enter into a recorded long-term affordable housing restrictive use agreement prior to the issuance of a building permit. Such agreements are a common feature of this world of affordable housing, where they serve to align promises and outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
My name is Richard Uren. My wife and I have lived on the corner of 18th and Irving for 24 years. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to testify about this issue here. And in fact, there are several issues. The most prominent one is the decision of the Historic Landmarks Commission to approve of this housing proposal. We think this was a flawed decision. Several of the approval criteria of this project were not met. They are summarized nicely in the Northwest District Association's letter of appeal. Both proposed buildings are incompatible in size and design with the historic context of the surrounding neighborhood, which on just 2 streets, Hoyt and Irving, contains 13 houses on the National Historic Register. We have 2 additional concerns. We worry that the units built under the appellation of affordable housing will not remain that way. There is nothing in my knowledge that would prevent the owners from converting it to market rate housing down the line, as you so eloquently articulated. Our second concern is the impact of the inordinate size of the project and its parking element on the neighborhood and community. Can I comment briefly on this or not?
Unless someone objects, you can, yeah, I don't know what.
You've heard that our neighborhood is probably the densest in the
State.
In the state, yes. It's often impossible to get parking during the day. This is a problem for those of us who live there, of course, but it will be an even bigger problem for those who move into the apartments. It is unrealistic to think that seniors and others will ditch their cars for bikes and scooters. We should remember that seniors have caregivers, families, and friends who will come to see them and have to park. Already, repairmen have refused to work on our houses because of the difficulty finding parking. We worry that the size of this project and the associated parking issue will make the neighborhood and the community a much more difficult place to live and work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Jessica Richmond, speaking for myself, long-time nearby resident, long-time city planner for Portland. 3 quick remarks. First, the discussion about bait and switch. I want to be very clear that although many of us are concerned about market rate housing being built here instead of affordable, we're not concerned about NHA doing that. We know they're not in the business of market rate housing. It's just if they aren't able to get funding and another developer comes in, we're not casting aspersions on them. Second, I wanted to also emphasize that many of us are, including Vicki, have been advocates for affordable housing for many years. For myself, I'm coming up on my 45th year of housing advocacy, including when I worked for the city, working on the project Strategies for Fair Housing that became a national model for citing special needs housing, and is still the outstanding model in this country, and is one of the things I'm proudest of in my life. And finally, this doesn't relate specifically to the criteria, but to the purpose of the historic districts. I'm hearing a lot, and you are, that Portland's changing. It's not Portland anymore. We're losing our special character. The historic districts are the one area where that character is preserved. And in this particular tiny little bit of Northwest, you can still see what it was like many years ago. And so to keep that special character, we ask that you deny this proposal or ask for significant revisions. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the last speaker we have is Alan Buller.
comes. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, ladies
Welcome.
and gentlemen. My name is Alan, and I also live adjacent to this proposed development. I'd just like to essentially support what I feel are the failure based upon the massing of this project and also the design compatibility, as well as no guarantee that this will be affordable housing. Because a number of people have commented on the bait and switch aspect of this thing. I would just like to comment briefly on, and I want to totally support all of those who commented in a positive way about their support for affordable housing. We've never said that. As a matter of fact, it's kind of curious that this is the third proposal on this site and the first one that has that as a catchphrase in terms of trying to attempt to get this approved. And so I would caution, I know that Nick Fish had extensive questions for one of the co-applicants during the initial testimony in January of 2015. Unfortunately, I don't have the specific line, but I'm sure it's a matter of record. And during that time, he questioned the applicants repeatedly about their ability to get to 60% in terms of the income requirements here, and they repeatedly said they could not do that. And so now suddenly they can do that. I would question that miracle that happened between then and now. And then the final thing I would say is that in respect, just a few more seconds, in a few more, in the context of 97209, this zip code where this is, I want to reiterate, this is the most dense zip code by population in the state of Oregon. And it's also like within the zip codes within the city of Portland, it's 30th out of 32nd in median income. So clearly there is affordable housing here. There's below market, people that don't have the same income. And then also I would mention that there's a 12.2% vacancy rate. I can send all of these references to each one of you if you want to verify that, but there's a 12.2% vacancy rate in 97209. I would suggest that some form of support for affordable housing in terms of assisting those rent assistants would be appropriate while we search for a credible solution to this problem, and I would love to see something there.
Thank you for your testimony. Very good. Commissioner Fritz, I'm sorry.
I have a question for the city attorney. Was the council's discussion and decision in 2015 discussed at the Landmarks Commission?
That's a question for staff. Can staff speak to that?
I'll ask you later then.
Hi, Hillary Adam, BDS. The council discussion wasn't part of the Landmarks discussion for this case, but the council decision for the 2014 demolition review, that was added to the record.
Okay.
So the findings for that are in the record.
Thank you.
I also have a question, and I believe I know the answer, but was there any increased benefits as far as FAR or height or any of these modifications tied to an affordability requirement or promise?
I don't believe.
I didn't think so.
believe so.
Okay, thank you.
But they're not asking for it.
Well, but I'm just getting the sense from the testimony that there's a belief that this project's being allowed to go forward when it wouldn't otherwise be because of the promise of
It's
affordable
actually
housing.
under the maximum FAR.
Yeah, thank you.
So I think the concern is that the design criteria and the historic landmarks criteria have been the question is, have they been ignored because it's been promised? And so that was kind of part of my questions for the modification for the loading dock and your good question about the landscaping as to whether that plays in.
So if I could muse aloud on this same theme, we have no way of knowing intent, obviously, other than looking at the criteria themselves and determining whether or not we believe that this is consistent with the criteria, the design criteria.
And, can we have any kind of conversation at this point, or should we move forward and save it for the end?
Yeah, it might be worth saving council discussion until after you hear from the applicant.
Very good. Next up, the principal opponent. You have 30 minutes plus 2 minutes and 3 seconds, should you choose to take it. Again, name for the record. Names for the record. Thank you. Ask legal counsel a question while we're getting the presentation set up. The principal opponent time frame, is that established based on the time of the staff report plus the total appellant testimony? Is that how we're coming to the 30 minutes?
It's the 30 minutes. So typically the principal opponent or the applicant here would get 15 minutes, but with 2 appellants, they got extra time.
Okay.
I don't know if they intend to use it all.
Okay. Is that agreed upon, or is that just the standard that you typically use?
It is a standard that the city has consistently applied, and then what we notice the parties is what's set out today. So this is what everyone's been noticed and kind of came today knowing would be the time allowed.
Okay. I was just curious. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Is it good to go, Sue? Is it working? Yeah, there we go.
It's not quite what we want, but I think it's what our system will allow here.
Is there a teenager in the house?
I was going to say. We need a digital native in the room.
Oh, you were so close.
Uh-oh, what are we going to see here?
Sorry, Sue. Can you come do it again? Oh, I figured out how to shrink it, but it's...
We just need to start again.
Perfect with the underneath the good.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, that was a very good example.
Okay.
Sue, if you want, why don't you move it up to 32 minutes, just because there was, the appellants took a little extra time. Thank you.
So, thank you and good afternoon. My name is Cosette Tran Cafe. I'm with the law firm of Lane Powell, and we're a land use counsel for the applicant, Northwest Housing Alternatives. We've submitted a detailed written response to the legal issues raised in the appeals, and I'll be available to answer any questions you have on those. But because this review is really focused on the project design, our design professional and applicant are going to handle the bulk of the presentation today. First, you'll hear from Trell Anderson. He's the executive director of Northwest Housing Alternatives. He'll give brief background on the organization and an introduction to the project. And then Michelle Black with Carlton Hart Architects will explain the research that went into the project, that went into getting to know the historic Alphabet District, and she'll walk you through the design process as well. And then Michelle and I will address the specific legal issues raised in the appeal and the additional issues raised today as well.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Wheeler, council members. My name is Trell Anderson. I'm the Executive Director of Northwest Housing Alternatives. We're an affordable housing developer of 1,800 units across the state. We introduced this project initially as affordable housing because we wanted to provide transparency to our intentions at the site. Yet our landmarks process has focused on the design and compatibility. The ideal is to provide affordable housing in a high opportunity area that will provide access to transit, shopping, jobs, education, healthy foods and services, all while reducing the need and expense of a car. These are also the policy goals of the City of Portland. We appreciate all of the comments here today in support of affordable housing. Northwest Housing Alternatives has experience with adaptive reuse and upgrade of historic properties such as what we've proposed here. We're neighbors with two historic properties in the Alphabet District, the Roslyn and Victorian Inn Apartments, and one asset in the Piedmont neighborhood called Rosemont. My point here is that we're not new to this, and we're committed to historic preservation. This project is complicated, and the fact is not taken lightly. We understand the process, and we invested the time and resources to submit a compatible and compliant development proposal. The team undertook an extensive amount of research and outreach that influenced the design before you today. The design process was developed and refined. The design itself was developed and refined over a course of essentially 2 years and included numerous meetings with BDS staff and stakeholders, 3 meetings with the neighborhood, 3 DARs, and 1 historic resource review before being approved by the Historic Landmarks Commission. By listening to stakeholders, we made changes, additions, and amendments. We also made concessions. One example is that we first brought forward a 6-story building for the north building, but after feedback, listening, and consideration, we made changes, including the elimination of a full story and the loss of 14 to 17 total units, as much as 10% to accommodate. Arriving here today, it's taken time, effort, and expense to get here. But the team's diligence resulted in BDS staff citing that all approval codes and guidelines have been met, and the Historic Landmarks Commission agreed to vote to support the project. We thank you for your time and consideration this afternoon. I'd be happy to answer any questions about NHA, and we have our experts, team members that will lead us through the rest of the proposal.
Thank you.
I'm Michelle Black from Carlton Hart Architecture, and I'm going to walk through some of the context research as well as the design. So we're in the historic Alphabet District, and to look and see what the thesis of the historic Alphabet District is, we look to the Statement of Significance, and I'm going to read this aloud. The district's multifamily dwellings are noteworthy for their appearance in an area that retains buildings from its early development period. Grand single-family homes sit next to first-class apartment buildings in a physical representation of the socio-cultural transition experienced by one of Portland's oldest neighborhoods. This is taken from the Historic Alphabet District Community Design Guidelines Addendum, and this really tells us what is important with this neighborhood, why this neighborhood was designated a historic district, and what the characteristics are that we should be trying to abide by. So this is the immediate context. You've heard the neighbors speak about this, the context. On the map, the site in red is us. And just to go quickly, you've seen many of these images before. But this really speaks to, just from these photos taken from our site, this speaks to what the neighborhood is. You see you see single-family homes, you see low-rise multi-family, you see commercial, you see a church, and beyond the Associated Oil building in the here, you see multifamily. There's a mix of architectural styles, a mix of sizes, a mix of scale, as well as just how these buildings are sited. So residential buildings typical are set back from the sidewalk, whereas commercial buildings and larger multifamily buildings are sited right up to the sidewalk. This is the diversity of the neighborhood. Then we take a little step out, as Commissioner Udala was talking about. There's a vast variety of architectural styles, sizes, types in this neighborhood. And this is just showing another cluster of buildings found throughout the district. The ones that have the dash line around them are some of the buildings that we used in really referencing for our building designs. So height has been talked about a lot. This is a map of the district, and it has been color-coded for heights. Gives you a sense of where we are in the district. So we're this red rectangle over on the east side. And you don't need to get into the specifics really, but from the lightest blue, which is a one-story building, up into that very dark midnight blue, which is a 6+ story building, and the heights of those are written on them. You see just again, what it looks like in this district. There are short buildings next to tall buildings. There's 12-story buildings, there are one-story buildings. This is the diversity of the neighborhood.
And I'm assuming that's in the record?
Yes, ma'am. It is.
Thank you.
And just as much as the height variation is seen across the neighborhood, it is really this proximity of tall next to short that is so prevalent in the neighborhood. As one example, on the top left here, this is the Everett apartment building next to a residence. This is a 57, both of these are contributing buildings to the neighborhood. This is a 57-foot tall multifamily next to a 26-foot tall house. This is what the neighborhood looks like. So just as much as there's height variation, the proximity of all these buildings is close. It is the dense neighborhood that the neighbors have spoken about. And multifamily buildings are prevalent in the neighborhood. We see these buildings adhere to classic urban design principles by they build right up to the sidewalk. There is very little setback. If anything, there's a small landscape buffer along some of these, but these buildings really hold an urban edge. And then there have been new buildings that have been approved in the district of size. Each of these has been approved since the district has been designated historic district, excuse me. And so getting to the building design. Okay. So as you saw from staff, we have our building design is based off of building 3 separate looking structures. Though the south addition is an addition to the contributing Buck Prager building, it is made to look as a standalone building. Really, that intent was trying to get the Buck Prager building to exist as its own, so it still has the prominence that it does today. So the design of this was looking at surrounding buildings through the district and really looking at the fine-grained detail of the district as you walk down the street and you experience these different types of buildings, different scales, different details. So getting to the renovation and upgrades to the Buck Prager building itself, we're relying heavily on historic photographs that tell us what this building originally looked like. Thankfully, the facade is in relatively good shape and hasn't been altered too much over time. It has lost this decorative eyebrow piece and canopy, and the lower ground floor windows have been filled up. So we plan to restore all of that, replace the replacement windows that currently are in there with more historic character wood windows, remaking and reinstalling the eyebrow, remaking a canopy, and of course there's significant seismic and fire life safety upgrades that will have to be made to this building. But the intent is to keep it of the character that it once was. And the south addition. So this is a tricky design problem, that to make an addition that looks like its own building yet has enough of a relationship to its contributing building that it's attaching to. So very careful analysis was done with this building, and this was one that we did have a lot of feedback from the Landmarks Commission and went back and forth with some of the design suggestions that they gave. And so really looking at how the makeup of the Buck Prager facade can be taken through to the south building, carrying across the horizontal datum lines, holding to this base. There's a brick top to both of these, and then there's a smooth coat base, so carrying that through. And then also there's this very specific rhythm, 4-foot rhythm of solid versus openings that carries across this symmetrical facade, and continuing that in the south addition as well. And the key to making the Buck Prager still its own structure and of its own historic integrity is this change of color. So allowing the south building to kind of take a more muted stance with those darker colors. And here's a rendering looking at the south building, the Buck Prager, and the north building beyond. You'll see along Hoyt Street, there is a notch along the center of that facade, just again breaking up the massing of that facade, changing the materiality of that just to give smaller masses along the more residential street. And then this slide is showing you design influences of the north building. These are each contributing buildings within the district, and really looking at what is a characteristic multifamily mid-rise building in the district. We started to see some constant themes. This idea of a base, middle, cap, or order to the building, oriel windows on several of these, a rusticated base, where that's the detail of the base, trying to break up bigger facades with change in materials and change of color. And then for our oriel windows, really, we looked at the Campbell townhomes that have these unique squared oriel bays to them, and the change in from a wood oriel to the brick facade.
Is that oriole, like the bird?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Because it doesn't come all the way down to the ground, so it's suspended there. Anyway, so looking at here's a rendering of the north building. Again, so this change in material from brick to wood, having these very detailed bandings, the strong cornice and the bandings at several places across the facade. This notch was added in as part of our again, discussions with Landmarks Commission, and then a deeper inset at the top to really start to create this space between these volumes. The larger inset along the 18th Avenue side at the front entrance to give there some different experience along the pedestrian path there. So now we're going to address the approval criteria. So this project has two different sets of approval criteria, 3 from the Historic Alphabet District Guidelines, 1, 2, and 3, and then we have 16 from the Community Design Guidelines that we must meet. And BDS staff recommended approval, and the Landmarks Commission granted approval, saying we met all of them. And these are the 6 guidelines that are referenced in the appeals. and we will address each of them.
Do you want to talk about affordability first? Let's do this. Okay.
Okay, sorry. So I'm going to read the guideline. This is Historic Alphabet District Guideline number 2 states, differentiate new from old. New addition, exterior alterations, or related new construction will retain historic materials that characterize a property to the extent practicable. Replacement materials should be reasonable facsimiles of the historic materials they replace, and the design of new construction will be compatible with the historic qualities of the district as identified in the historic context statement. So a project complicated like ours, where we have a new building, an existing historic structure, and an addition, you have to start to piecemeal these out. So the top portion here is going to reference the Buck Prager and South addition, because it's talking about additions and existing structures. The middle, talking about replacement materials, is really applying to the Buck Prager, and the final, talking about design of new construction, is related to the north building. And I've just gone through the design with you briefly. So the guideline is being met by, first of all, the south addition is taking design cues from the Buck Prager. The Buck Prager itself is being restored to its historic character. And then the north building is utilizing design ideas from other buildings in the district.
Could I ask you a question just for my own clarification? So when you say the guidelines are met by, and then you list, this is the Historic Landmarks Commission's opinion, or is this whose opinion is this when you say the guidelines are
I
met
can
by?
say that this is my opinion, but these were presented as part of a much lengthier list of how we're meeting the guidelines, and they felt we met the guideline, whether it's specific to this or not.
For the most part, the decision references, but like incorporates by reference the materials that the applicant submitted in its application.
Okay.
So,
thank you.
But just as far as the wording is not like specific from their findings, if that's
Okay.
the question.
I just wanted to make sure I understood whose views were being represented here.
Thanks for clarifying.
So, as we heard, one of the main objections under this guideline is related to the size of the new buildings, which the appellants have argued grossly overwhelmed the Buck Prager. Under this particular guideline, I'll use the term guideline and criterion interchangeably, because here the guidelines are the criteria, just to clarify that. This objection is just misplaced under this guideline, which focuses on the historic materials and the design detailing and not the size or the scale of the buildings. Their second main objection is that the South Addition just isn't sufficiently related to the Buck Prager, but as Michelle sort of talked you through in some detail just a minute ago, the South Addition really does respond pretty closely to the Buck Prager and is designed carefully to reference that building but not copy it exactly. Third, and this is a theme that sort of repeats itself through all of the appeals, is the appellants want this guideline to focus on just this subset of nearby houses, but the correct frame of reference under the criterion is the Historic Alphabet District as a whole.
So Historic Alphabet District Guideline number 3 speaks to a hierarchy of compatibility, and that reads, exterior alterations and additions will be designed to be compatible primarily with the original resource, secondarily with adjacent properties, and finally, if located within a historic or conservation district, with the rest of the district. Where practical, compatibility will be pursued on all 3 levels. And then the second part of that is new development will seek to incorporate design themes characteristic of similar buildings in the Historic Alphabet District. So similarly to the last guideline, this gets applied to our project in piecemeal way, if you will. The first would be where it's talking about exterior alterations and additions applied to the south addition, where you meet the hierarchy of compatibility. Whereas the second portion, talking about new development, applies to our north building that says we're seeking to incorporate design themes, characteristics of similar buildings in the historic district. So as far as how we're meeting this, again, I showed you how the design of the south building is responding to the Buck Prager, and then the north building taking design cues from other buildings in the historic Alphabet District.
I'll start with the north building here because of some of the arguments that were raised earlier by the appellants. The ones that we've discussed already are just whether a different hierarchy, whether the three-tiered hierarchy applies to new development. And I think it's pretty clear from the wording of the guideline that for new development, it's only compatibility with similar buildings in the historic Alphabet District. And now we've heard a new argument that the north building should really be considered an exterior alteration and rather than a new development. So I just, if you'll bear with me, want to read.
That's a new argument, though, so I don't think you need to address it.
Huh?
Isn't that a new argument, so you don't need to address it?
Well, let's...
You'd like to anyway, go
Yes.
ahead.
So, under the code, the definition of new development...
Where's our legal counsel?
There.
Could we get an opinion on that before we move on?
Well, they didn't object, so I think they get to respond.
Okay, I just want to, we're back to the arguments around hierarchy, and I just want to make sure that we're not going down a road that we should not be going down. Could you repeat the issue,
So
please,
this
for
is
legal
the-
counsel?
This is whether the north building should be considered an exterior alteration or new development under the code definitions. And we raised the objection that was a new argument, but I also wanted to address it substantively.
Yeah, so my understanding from staff is that the argument that
Is your microphone on?
turned it off right before I started speaking. Thank you. Okay. My understanding from staff is that this argument was not raised before the Landmarks Commission. It is a new argument. However, the notice, which identifies that applicants are only allowed to raise new issues, does not specifically exclude them from raising new argument. So although technically, and that's what we state at the beginning of the hearing, and traditionally what we require, our notice did not provide that fair warning. So we are allowing the parties to raise an objection. We are alerting to council. However, to the extent council does want to consider it and think it's fair to consider it, I think that staff is also prepared to respond to that argument today.
Okay,
or the applicant.
Then that's fine. I just wanted the clarification because this is an appeals process. And so the idea of bringing new ideas to the
Yes.
table isn't necessarily something I feel 100% comfortable with, except in this case, it sounds like both parties or all parties are in agreement that it is okay and they're willing to have this discussion.
Well, to the extent that council just wants to disregard the new argument, we would be supportive of that as well. But because it's been raised, I would like to address it.
You're worried that we can't unforget it.
Yes. So I just want to read, it'll be very brief, the definition of new development under the code, and that's development of a site that was previously unimproved or that has had previously existing buildings demolished. And that is exactly what's going to happen on the site where the north building will be built. Right now it's a surface parking lot and a one-story residential structure. The structure will be raised and the north building will be built there. So it clearly falls under the definition of new development and not exterior alteration or addition. So the point there is just that because it's new development, it only has to be compatible with similar buildings in the district as a whole. And Michelle showed you several examples of other mid-rise multifamily buildings that the north building responds to from a design standpoint. And then with respect to the south addition, we really need to look at the hierarchy. The most important thing is responsiveness and compatibility to the original resource, which is the Buck Prager, and we've talked in some detail about those design features. Oh, sorry, I just can't stop talking. Also, the appellant's interpretation of compatibility is unduly narrow. They really want to argue that the buildings have to be similar to these nearby buildings, but similarity, compatibility doesn't mean similarity. And if we look at the Landmarks Commission's Guide to the Historic Review Process, and this is quoting from that guide, new buildings do not have to be copies of historic buildings to be compatible, and fitting in is not the same thing as uniformity.
So now we go to the community design guidelines. P1, plan area character. Enhance the sense of place and identity by incorporating site and building design features that respond to the area's desired characteristics and traditions. And so how we're meeting this guideline is the multiple distinct buildings along the length of a block is something that we see throughout the district. The articulated facade designs incorporating details that are found throughout the district, creating an urban edge along 18th Avenue and landscape setbacks on Hoyt and Irving. Rehabilitation of the Buck Prager itself, and compatible south addition to the Buck Prager.
Here, the appellant's argument is similar to some of their other arguments, that the new buildings under this guideline need to be similar to that subset of nearby houses. But what the desired characteristics and traditions here is actually a specifically defined term. It's found in the Northwest District Area Plan, and specifically in a section of that called the Eastern Edge Desired Characteristics and Traditions, because this property is in the Eastern Edge sub-area of the Northwest District Plan area. So there are 3 applicable desired characteristics outlined in that plan. The first is contribution to the architectural diversity of the Eastern Edge. We've seen that this project does that. The second desired characteristic is continuation of the established pattern of partial block massing, and we've seen that this project also does that. And then the third desired characteristic is preservation of historic resources in the historic Alphabet District. And here, of course, this project is restoring the Buck Prager and rehabilitating it, so we've satisfied that as well.
Community design guideline number 2, historic and conservation districts. Enhance identity of historic and conservation districts by incorporating site and building design features that reinforce the area's historic significance. Near historic and conservation districts use such features to reinforce and complement the historic area. So how we're meeting this guideline is through the full upgrade of the Buck Prager and sensitive restoration of its facade elements. Compatible south addition to the Buck Prager, a north building that's influenced by historic buildings in the district, as well as we have site amenities such as mirroring the brick pavers that are found across Irving Street, as well as other landscaping.
The main argument raised under this guideline has been that the Landmarks Commission didn't make the same findings or perform the same analysis as Council did a few years ago with respect to the demolition review. We saw in Grace's presentation sort of the main difference between these 2 reviews is that this project is proposing to rehabilitate and save the Buck Prager, and the previous demolition review was for demolition of that building. But also we saw in Grace's presentation just the difference in size between these 2 projects. That was a full half block. This is several related but distinct from a design perspective buildings that are much smaller and that retain the historic resource. In addition, there's no requirement that each land use review end up with the same analysis or make the same findings. And in this case, you really couldn't, because the applicable approval criteria, it's a completely separate set of applicable approval criteria for this than it was for the demolition review.
Community Design Guideline D6, Architectural Integrity. Respect the original character of buildings when making modifications that affect the exterior. Make additions compatible in scale, color, details, material proportion, and character with the existing building. We're meeting this by providing full systems upgrades to the Buck Prager, conducting a sensitive restoration of the facade elements, and its addition is compatible with it.
There's not too much to say from a legal perspective on this architectural integrity guideline, and I also want to save time to address the request for an affordability covenant. So unless you guys have questions.
And then Community Design Guideline D7, blending into the neighborhood. Reduce the impact of new development on established neighborhoods by incorporating elements of nearby quality buildings such as building details, massing, proportions, and materials. So the exterior wall areas are divided into distinct smaller planes, especially along Hoyt and Irving Streets, really breaking down the massing of our buildings. There's differentiation in materials and detailing that we find throughout the district. The South Addition, again, is compatible with the Buck Prager, and there's landscaping setbacks along the transitions to those more residential streets of Hoyt and Irving.
You've seen, and Michelle's just reminded you of the site design and building design details that the project uses to sort of reduce its impact on the neighborhood. This is another area where the appellants really want us to focus again just on that subset of houses, but really the frame of reference is the neighborhood. And I think we should also look, even like, let's assume that really we're only looking at the immediately adjacent properties. Even just the ones that are either directly touch the site, the project site, or just across the street from the site, there's a good deal of diversity just in those properties. There's the Buck Prager, obviously. It's a flat-roofed institutional building. There's also a flat-roofed office building, a flat-roofed community service center attached to the church, one of the two churches, a couple of multifamily buildings, including the converted church, which will actually be just about the same height as the South Addition, or even maybe a little bit taller. So this project really does blend into the diversity of the neighborhood. Before we conclude, I do want to address the requested affordability condition. I'll address it from a legal standpoint, and then Trell can address it from a practical standpoint. There's been some suggestion that this affordable housing proposal has sort of colored the Landmarks Commission's assessment, and even, I guess, the neighbors' assessment of the design. You've seen in our presentation, which is similar to what was presented before Landmarks Commission, that the focus really is on the design. And in the decision, the Landmarks Commission has made it very clear that whether or not these units are affordable is not relevant to the applicable approval criteria in this design-focused review. So from a legal standpoint, imposing an affordability condition, because it's not relevant to the applicable approval criteria and it's not otherwise authorized by the code, would be beyond the authority of this review, beyond the scope of this review.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead, Charles. Go ahead and finish the whole.
Thank you. I was just going to say, from a practical standpoint, you two as the housing commissioners know this, anytime we apply for public funding to subsidize these units, there will be covenant restriction on the property for terms. We do intend to apply for funding from the City of Portland. We're eyeballing the bond funds that have recently been approved. That will come with deed restrictions and affordability compliance period. I believe Portland Housing Bureau is now talking about 99-year affordability period. So, as you know, that's down the road as we secure the funding to do the affordable housing.
Commissioner Fritz?
So would you be willing to add a voluntary condition of approval, holding it to 60% of median family income?
Commissioner, thank you. I really appreciate that. Our mission is to provide 100% affordable housing in what we do. I'm hesitant to commit to any level in this process because that needs to be negotiated as the funding comes in. There are so many different levers that determine the rate of affordability of each unit. We can have a number of different affordability ranges within one property, and it really depends on the amount of subsidy that comes in for the type of unit within a building.
But you don't provide workforce housing, do you?
Well, that's
Do you provide 80%?
workforce housing is a debatable term, so I hesitate.
Do you provide 80% and 100% market rate housing?
I hesitate. We have 1,800 units in portfolio. None of them are above 80% median family income.
That's why I was so, because I think there is a legal nexus with the waiving of the loading dock, the loading space, that it's prefaced on either it being senior housing or studio apartments, and the argument was made people are not going to have a lot of stuff because they're either elderly or have low incomes. So I do think that there's a relevance to that particular adjustment in the approval criteria in 805040. So that's, if you could be thinking about, is there something that you could agree to as a condition of approval of that modification, of that adjustment, that would still be well within the range of what you do, and give some assurance that it's not, if the city funding or whatever funding doesn't come through, it's not going to be then sold off for market rate housing with massive apartments that will need much more of the loading and unloading capacity.
Can I just speak to the design implication that you're making right now? While this certainly is looking at, we're getting approval for the exterior of this building, it's not so simple to just leave everything in place on the outside and move around the interiors to make this work, especially of a development as complicated as this with the 3 different structures in the historic building. So while I understand what you're going for, I think the idea that this would be sold and then changed massively and still meeting all the codes and guidelines it's a bit more complicated than maybe we're addressing.
Well, then maybe it's a condition of approval to keep it as studio apartments, but because it says right here in the findings on page 21, developments such as this, affordable senior housing consisting of studio apartments, tend to have minimal apartment turnover and less need for unloading larger furniture. That goes away if it becomes a market, this is a really nice area. So it could be very marketed. And I actually like the design of your properties. I'm concerned about this particular modification.
Can we have a couple of minutes?
Yeah, I'm asking you to do it now. I understand we've got 14 people signed up to testify, so we could have you come back at the end to see if there's something that could help me be comfortable in approving that adjustment.
I also have some questions.
Commissioner
Mayor.
Daly.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank you for clarifying issues or concerns or suspicions about this being a bait and switch. Northwest Housing Alternatives is a absolutely reputable affordable housing developer, and I think it just speaks to the level of kind of anxiety and mistrust in the community, which is sometimes well-founded, but I don't think it is in this case. I am also reluctant to agree to a condition of affordability because I know that you can't secure financing until you are able to build, and that's what this hearing is about. And I think an encumbrance like that would be too restrictive and challenging given the market that we're in right now. But I do agree, if we are making a modification based on this assumption that these are small units and that people won't be, unloading grand pianos and full dining sets, that maybe there is a condition to be set there that if we're going to forgo the loading space, that these have to be studio apartments, however many studio apartments you're currently considering. One item came up that you didn't address, and I'm, again, Lauren's gone, so not sure if I should raise this issue or not, but it is a question for me. It was from the owner, from the owner of the converted church across the street, which is a historic property that's been negatively impacted by nearby development in the past. There were two concerns. One, a concern about damaging, I'm sorry, what's the name of the contributing property on the lot? The Prager?
The Buck Prager.
Buck Prager. Any potential damage to that building, as well as damage to that converted church property or other nearby kind of older, more fragile properties. I don't know if there's going to be pile driving on this project. Can you speak to those concerns at all?
I mean, that's a construction.
I mean, is there the possibility? Yes, this is construction. There's always the possibility. I think, we do this for a living. We have extensive experience in historic preservation. There is a lot of work that happens before any tools are brought to the site. We have structural engineers that are on board that have experience with this, and our construction team is Bremit Construction, who they also have a lot of experience in historic preservation. So certainly we understand what it takes to build next to in even historic properties and what precautions to take. It is a much different level of construction, honestly. It takes a longer time. You have to be more deliberate about things. There are certain tools that you can and cannot use just to keep that historic fabric in place.
And point out, we'd have the same concern about the Buck Prager.
Right.
Very good. You have 45 more seconds. Do you need it?
We did have a nice conclusion.
Well, I'm not sure if we have the image up. I mean, thank you. Our conclusion really is here, we hesitated to use this slide because the image of our property, our proposed project here, it's not obvious. But because of that, it makes a great point. This is the fabric of the neighborhood. It's unique, it's diverse. Our property fits in, and we're excited to get going as soon as we can. So we thank you for your time today, your considerations. We'd be happy to answer any and all questions.
Thank you. Any further questions for this panel? All right, next up, thank you. We have other opponents who would like to testify, 2 minutes each. Sue, how many people do we have signed up?
We have 14.
Very good. Please call the first three.
All right, we have the Landmarks Commissioner, Kristen Miner, Martha McLennan, Brian Carlton. They'll be followed by Paul Falsetto, Doug Klotz, Ian McKenzie.
Good afternoon.
Hello, Mayor, Commissioners. I am Kristen Miner, Chair of the Landmarks Commission, and I was present at all of the proceedings for this project, including the design advice hearings. Ultimately, the Landmarks Commission did vote 5-1 to approve this project.
I'm sorry, Sue, could, number one, the clock isn't running, and number two, can we take the presentation down? One moment. Dick, not on me. That's what I get for asking.
So I wanted to talk about our decision and how we reached it briefly. First off, the Commission was unanimous on quite a number of points, and those included support of the changes to the Buck Prager and its adaptation to this residential use. This is a great win. The modifications that were requested and the adjustment, and the style and look of the south building, which is really the addition to the Buck Prager. The one commissioner voted no based on the north building's exterior materials and style. So she believed that the north building did not meet the interest, quality, and composition guideline. And just to kind of paraphrase, she thought that that building mimicked the historic buildings too closely, and that its materials and craftsmanship fell short as compared to some of the other historic buildings that it really was trying to look like. Several other commissioners did discuss this, but found the guideline to be met. So overall, the majority of commissioners did find the final proposal to meet the guidelines. And I will say that regarding scale and height, that was a unanimous decision. None of the commissioners had concerns overall with the scale and height. And that's important. The historic district does have quite a few disparities in height and in style, as have been discussed here. And these disparities are existing and therefore appropriate. And there are just many instances where volumes such as those three sort of separate look buildings really fit into the morphology of this neighborhood.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm Martha McLennan. I'm speaking today as a private citizen, former executive director of Northwest Housing Alternatives. So I have some history with this project and the efforts that the agency had undertaken to begin the design process and bring it to the point that you see it here today. I think the issue that I want to comment most upon is the diversity of this district within Portland and how that diversity contributes to the richness of our community. The district includes small buildings, large buildings, old buildings, new buildings, buildings that are serving people of affluence and serving people with lesser incomes. I think that is the thing that makes Portland a great place and makes Northwest Portland a great place. That diversity is its historic character, and taking that character on into the future will strengthen the community as a whole. I think the appellants confuse sameness with compatibility. And I think it's very important to distinguish those two principles. Having a tall building next to a short building, an old building next to a new building, a multi-family building next to a single-family building, do not detract from the neighborhood. In fact, they make the tapestry of our community stronger. So I encourage you to uphold the Landmarks Commission, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm Brian Carlton. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I am principal of Carlton Hart Architecture. I'm speaking as an interested architect here. And the first thing I'd like to do is applaud the neighborhood and the district association for their welcoming of affordable housing into their neighborhood. I want to acknowledge that. Our firm specializes in affordable housing. We're in front of a lot of angry neighborhood associations throughout the city, and they have been clear from the beginning of this process that they welcome affordable housing, and so I just want to acknowledge that. We do have a disagreement on questions of density and scale, though, and I'd like to read real quickly from the statement of significance that was included in the nomination of the Alphabet District, Historic District, to have it included in the National Register. This has been read before, but I really think it's worth repeating. The Historic Alphabet District is further eligible under Criterion C for its expression of early residential architecture in the city of Portland, characterized by buildings of various types, styles, and eras. Indeed, the Historic Alphabet District is unique in Portland for its concentration of early 20th century multifamily structures, many of which were designed and constructed by the city's premier architects and developers. The district's multifamily dwellings are noteworthy for their appearance in areas that retain buildings from its earlier development period. Grand single family homes sit next to first-class apartment buildings in physical representation of social cultural transition experienced by one of Portland's oldest neighborhoods. So the two main points are that it is a neighborhood rich in architectural diversity, size, use, and that has been a part of its history throughout. And it's also, the second point is that that introduction of the apartment building is what has led to its social and cultural diversity as well. It was stated earlier that Northwest District and the Alphabet District are the densest neighborhoods in all of Oregon. And that's appropriate. This neighborhood, it's a bedroom community sitting right next to downtown. That's where we should have density. It's a neighborhood made rich by that diversity, both architecturally and socially.
Thank you. Next three, please, Sue.
The next three, please come up. Paul Falsetto, Doug Klotz, Ian McKenzie. They will be followed by Alan Kessler, Leon Porter, Madeline Kovacs.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Paul Falsetto, and I'm the Historic Preservation Consultant to the applicants on this project. And we've been working diligently since 2016 with the BDS staff, Grace and Hillary, on this project because it's one of the most complex projects I've ever been associated with, and I like these sort of projects. So in preservation and architecture, you have three main activities you can do. One is you can restore or rehabilitate a historic building. We're doing that. Two is you do an addition to that building. Incredibly complex. We're doing that. And three is you do a new building in a historic context. We're doing all this simultaneously. The staff and us really had to get into the DNA of the 19 criterion across two guidelines that we have to address. Landmarks Commission put us through our paces, and I have to say that top to bottom in its entirety, this is one of the best historic landmarks commissions I've seen in my 20 years in Portland, and they made us earn their 5-1, which is a near unanimous opinion. The one dissent said that the north building is too compatible for the district, and we kind of take that as a forehand compliment. Regarding the height of the building, within 2 blocks, there's 5 buildings from 2003 to 2017 of 5 stories or taller that were approved through this very same process. So what we're doing is not an anomaly. It was brought up the 2014 Type 4 hearing that Council reviewed and rightfully denied demolition of the Buck Prager building. That proposal brought before Council was of first of all, demolished the Buck Prager, and it created a 4 to 6 story single half-block structure. That's not what we're doing at all. And so to try to relate the two is a little bit confusing at best. What we're doing is actually creating the 3 building types that I mentioned, and I don't want it to be forgiven that we are doing the near miracle of saving the Buck Prager, restoring its facade elements, and doing a full seismic upgrade. Any questions for me? No, thanks.
Perfect time. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Doug Klotz. I oppose this appeal and support the project as approved by the Historic Landmarks Commission. The design restores the Buck Prager, as we've heard, and the south addition uses simple massing and window arrangement to relate it to Buck Prager. The north building's materials form a detailed and rich fabric with projecting bays and recesses that mimics many of the historic apartment buildings in the district. This 5-story building meets the standard of District 2 guideline compatible with qualities of the district. There have been talk about it being oversized. However, there is a 5-story contributing structure, the Worthington Apartments, a mere half block away from the site that establishes the qualities of this immediate neighborhood under guidelines 2 and 3. 2 blocks away, we have the 5-story contributing Wickersham Apartments, which sit directly across a 60-foot street right-of-way from 2-story Victorian houses, all contributing, I believe. So the north building will also be across a 60-foot right-of-way from 2 and 3-story Victorian houses on Irving Street. Although the Irving Street roadway is 28 feet, the right-of-way is 60 feet, which is the same as all streets in the district. So that determines how far away you are when you're across the street from it. It's the same as all the rest of the streets in the district. The juxtaposition of tall apartment buildings and smaller houses is a characteristic of the district in the context statement, as we've heard twice now. I won't read it a third time. But this building and the siting and the size really are very compatible with the district. And I would say that go much further toward keeping the character of the district than leaving what we have there, which is 2 parking lots and the Buck Prager sitting in the middle of it, vacant. It is also significant, of course, that this building will have, or may very well have 148 units of affordable housing, many for seniors who would benefit from proximity to Good Sam Hospital and the services there. So I urge you to vote today to reject this appeal.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Hello, my name is Ian McKenzie. I'm an architect and I'm here to oppose this appeal. From 2013 to January of this year, as a resident of the Northwest District, living at the 1927 Empress condominiums. Although located just outside of the boundaries of the historic district, they're a great example of the kind of multifamily housing that makes Northwest the wonderful district that it is. The 5-story building was designed by noted architects Clausen and Clausen and has been determined to be eligible for inclusion in the National Register. I believe that Northwest 18th and Hoyt will be a worthy successor to this tradition of multifamily housing, a character-defining feature of the neighbourhood. I was going to read the same quote that Mr. Carlton did from the National Register, but it's important just to bear in mind that this district is listed on the National Register because of the juxtaposition that you have of multifamily mid-rise buildings and lower-rise single-family houses. Indeed, only 2 blocks to the south is the individually listed Wickersham condominiums, which rises to 5.5 stories directly across the street from low-rise detached houses. The architects have done a great job of studying the district and drawing influences from its greatest buildings, including the American apartment building at Northwest 21st and Johnson. In doing so, they have not only met but exceeded Guideline D7, blending into the neighbourhood, which says that new development should incorporate elements of nearby quality buildings, such as building details, massing, proportions, and materials. This building underwent a great deal of scrutiny by the Historic Landmarks Commission, a body that takes their role in historic preservation very seriously. If you vote to uphold their decision, you can be confident that you're approving a building that has already been very carefully reviewed by both city staff and dedicated volunteers. I would urge you to vote yes on this today. Affordable housing in particular faces great challenges in assembling its funding, and that funding can very easily be jeopardised by delay. Voting yes will allow Northwest Housing Alternatives and the architects to quickly move forward to assembling funding, submitting building permits, and ultimately to breaking ground on 148 new affordable homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Next 3, please.
Please come up. Alan Kessler, Leon Porter, Madeline Kovacs. They'll be followed by Laura Galina de Lovato, Julie Garver, Darren Gilbert.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Would you like to go ahead and start, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Happy to. Good afternoon. My name is Madeline Kovacs, and I'm the coordinator of the Portland for Everyone Coalition here in Portland. The 43 members of the coalition urge you to reject the appeal of the Block 162 apartments and uphold the decision of the Historic Landmarks Commission. We urge you to support the project that will preserve and seismically retrofit the Buck Prager, fall well within massing and unit limits allowed by the zoning, and offer 148 regulated affordable homes to Portland households that desperately need them. We don't actually believe that it ever makes sense to take all of the social and human context out of any decision that we ever make in the public realm. We must consider that we are in the midst of an affordable housing shortage. Portland does not have enough homes that are affordable to moderate and low-income residents. If bringing online more regulated affordable homes as quickly and efficiently as possible is a concern, and it should be, we urge Portland City Council to approve the project and not add further delay, thereby increasing cost per home. 17 homes and a floor have already been removed from the building. Again, floors allowed under the 5-to-1 FAR allowed by the code, and even under the 4-to-1 base code approved for the neighborhood by City Council. And as people have already said earlier here today, the mixture of building types is actually part of what qualifies that district as a historic district in the first place. It's part of the diversity of the district. As a city, if we continue to add delays and costs to every housing project, not to mention unduly burdening nonprofit affordable housing projects, then the overall cost to Portlanders will be tremendous. The inefficiencies add up, and it's the public that pays through public expenditure of time and resources and through rising housing prices. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Leon Porter. I currently live in Sullivan's Gulch, but
I lived in the Alphabet District within a few blocks of this site for 15 years until 2016, and I would have been happy to live across the street from this building. I think it will substantially improve the character of its block and enhance the appeal of the immediately surrounding blocks as well. As several speakers have already said, the diversity of the Alphabet District is part of its history, and by adding diverse scale and massing and housing types in this area, that will actually help this block to better match the character of the neighborhood as a whole. One thing that nobody else has said yet, but I think is relevant, is that the city does have an officially declared housing emergency, and I think that you should weigh that into your decision. And I would urge you not only to approve this project, but if you're going to add any conditions to it, one condition you could add would be to ask the developer to increase the building size back up to 6 stories so that it could include those 14 to 17 units that were lost. Okay.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Alan Kessler. I am a concerned citizen. So I've been here before to talk about this project. We had a discussion at the time. We were talking about the commissioner who lives across the street and decided to participate in the design advice review, and there's some ethics complaints filed over that. This was happening at the end of last year, the beginning of this year. This project has dragged out for 10 or 11 months. And to allow this process, to have neighbors be able to throw a temper tantrum and delay the creation of affordable housing, which everybody on this panel has said, and everybody on this council has said that we desperately need, is contrary to our goals. I know there are lots of people all over the city who'd love to have this power, but they don't. There are only a few types of neighborhoods that get to really bring these, that have the resources to do it. And if historic preservation isn't going to continue to just be a tool of white supremacy, which is what it is in this case, we have to do something different. We can't entertain this nonsense. Going to Commissioner Udaley's comment earlier, whether there were any bonuses given, no, there's a bonus available, but BDS staff told the developers not to even come in at the 4-to-1 that's allowed by right. They didn't get anywhere near that affordable housing bonus that this council, these neighbors came to this council before and asked for that area to be downzoned, and you denied it because you have different priorities. So, but through this process, through the pressure from BDS, and then through the 3 different design advice review hearings, which stretched over months, I would love to know the professional fees involved in taking your architects and your lawyers through that entire process. That's all money that's going to the cost of affordable housing that we desperately say we need. I would hope that this council would take this opportunity, 1, to censure the neighbors who are bringing this, and 2, to remove this ridiculous fee waiver for appeals, because this behavior shouldn't be tolerated.
Thank you. Thanks, all 3. Next 3, please.
Next 3, Laura Galina de Lovato, Julie Garver, Darren Gilbert. They'll be followed by Gregory D. Baker, Holly Balcom, and Laura, again, reading a letter from Stephen McMurtry.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. Thanks for the opportunity. My name is Laura Golino de Lovato. I'm the Executive Director at Northwest Pilot Project. For 49 years, Northwest Pilot Project has been helping low-income seniors get into housing or stay in housing. We would urge you, from that perspective of knowing how many seniors are being left struggling to find housing that they can afford to stay in, and how many homeless seniors there are needing housing, we would encourage you to uphold the Historic Landmarks Commission approval of this project and deny the appeal. We also want to say that we have a long and strong partnership with Northwest Housing Alternatives, who has a track record of building and managing affordable housing and making the day-to-day lives of the people who we serve, low-income seniors, more pleasant, and gives them the ability to live independently for a longer period of time. This is, as someone earlier said, a high opportunity area. The location is ideal for seniors, and the unit sizes are also ideal. NHA is willing to go through and has demonstrated that they're going through lots of hoops and challenges to identify a project that's going to be visually appealing as well as provide affordable housing. And the Historic Landmarks Commission approved the design. Let's maximize the use of this lot for housing that will be available at affordable rates for our most valued citizens, our elders. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Hi, welcome. Thank you, Board, for hearing my argument. My name is Darren Gilbert. I'm a student at Portland State University who is studying urban development. And since the beginning of this term, I've looked around the city of Portland on many different issues and sites that are being developed and are being sold to be developed. I have lived in Portland for over 20 years. I know the area that we were just speaking of, and I think affordable housing is definitely something we need. So one thing that I did hear today, though, was that we need to maybe put special conditions on this housing unit concerning to make sure that we have affordable housing for residents, because that is a big issue in this city. As a student who live on campus, I see a lot of the homeless problem, and it's a disgrace to our city. And I think if we had more affordable housing, that we could maybe take some of those people off the street. Thank you.
Thank you.
And is Julie Garver present? All right. Next three, please. Gregory Baker, Holly Balcom, and then Laura back for Stephen McMurtry.
Good afternoon, Mayor.
Afternoon, sir.
My name is Greg Baker. I'm the Executive Director of the Blanchet House of Hospitality, an agency that's been very active in providing food services and a shelter for homeless people in Portland area for some 66 years. We don't always get asked to step forward and testify in this regard, but to have an opportunity to find housing for men that we graduate roughly about 150 men per year. About 10% of those guys are over 55 years of age. We have about 5% are people of color. And we need housing. We spend a great deal, an inordinate amount of money, to get people rehabilitated during the 7 months that they're at the Blanchet House of Hospitality. To have the opportunity to find housing for them is very, very important to us. An average guy will spend a year to 2 years to get housing after they graduate from our program. So when we were invited to talk about this, we could not afford the opportunity to miss this. So we hope and encourage you to give great consideration to this. It would be very, very important to have a bridge available to our guys as they graduate. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon.
Hi, thank you for your time. My name is Holly Balcom, and I'm just a concerned citizen here in support of the proposal, in the support of the project in opposition to the appeal. I wanted to talk about the one that none of the fancy architects mentioned, which is the Northwest Towers, which is 335 Northwest 19th Street. It's 2 blocks away. It's a full 13 stories. This is an ugly building. It's white. It's 60s. It's got aluminum windows, but it provides Section 8 housing for mostly clients with disabilities. I wish we had 1,000 more of them in Portland. This project, the one at 17th and Hoyt, is not that. These guys have worked really hard to make this fit into the neighborhood, and the fact that this ugly white building is 2 blocks away and hasn't stopped the tourists from coming and hasn't stopped this from being a landmark neighborhood, and this is within the landmarked area, means that something that so clearly meets and leaps over the barriers that have been set should be approved. And I just have to say, there's something ugly about a room full of people comfortably housed denying much-needed housing for the sake of basically middle-class aesthetics. Please uphold the Historic Landmarks Commission's September approval of this project if it's the neighborhood, which is defined by small apartment buildings like this, side by side with single-family homes. Thank you for consideration and your time.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Hello again, Laura Golino de Lovato. I'm reading testimony from Stephen McMurtry. Hello, my name is Stephen McMurtry. I'm the former Housing Development Director at Northwest Housing Alternatives. I want to stress my full support of this project moving forward. From the beginning, NHA has put together a thoughtful and experienced team that has demonstrated a sensitivity to the design of the buildings within the context of the Alphabet District and its neighbors. As direct demonstration of this, NHA is committed to preserving and fully renovating the Buck Prager building, which as it stands now is rapidly deteriorating. It is my opinion that all three buildings making up the redevelopment of this important site in such a resource-rich area as the Alphabet District do an excellent job of directly complementing the adjacent dwellings in the community while reflecting the eclectic nature and the varied uses, shapes, and sizes of the buildings that make up the district as a whole. NHA has an unparalleled track record of conceptualizing and delivering on mission-based affordable housing developments that became permanent resources to the communities they serve throughout Oregon. They have selected a project team with decades of experience in preserving historic resources and the development of affordable housing in urban communities with a varied cast of community stakeholders. With that in mind, NHA and their team have presented a project that meets historic landmark guidelines while providing an affordable housing resource in a resource-rich neighborhood for decades to come. There is a housing crisis throughout our community as evidenced and supported by the voters for the Metro Housing Bond and the passing of statewide Measure 102. The crisis is real, and this project makes a commitment to help alleviate some of this crisis while making itself a valued and complementary part of the Alphabet District. I thank you for your time and efforts and hope you will support NHA in moving forward with this development. Stephen McMurtry, currently the Director of Housing Development, Housing Authority, Clackamas County.
Thank you very much.
That's all.
Very good. All right. So the appellants each have 5 minutes for rebuttals if they so choose. So first up is appellant number 1, the Northwest District Association, if you would like to rebut anything.
I have this strange sense of deja vu.
5 minutes, please.
Can I wait until Sue?
You start, because I can start the timer, please.
Okay, thank you. Jessica Richmond again for Northwest District Association. First, the definitions. New development occurs on a vacant site, and you have before you the definitions of new development, exterior alteration, and of site, and the definition of site is kind of long and complicated. I apologize, I wrote it, but it basically says a site is an ownership. So the site for this project is the full half block, which is under the ownership of one entity, and therefore the north building is an addition to that site, is an exterior alteration. It is not a vacant site. Second, the height, the image of the neighborhood at the end was very misleading. It showed a lot of non-existent full-grown trees obscuring some of the lower-rise development, and the height shown by the applicant of neighborhood buildings were often inaccurate, and also they compare buildings with sharply peaked roofs and church steeples to a flat-roofed building. In terms of mass, in terms of impact, in terms of design, those are very different things. There was a question about, this project is saving the Buck Prager building. That's wonderful, and we are very happy, but what saved the Buck Prager building was this council's decision in 2015 to deny demolition. There really isn't a choice here for the applicant. The eastern edge includes much more than you've heard about from the applicant, and if you go back to the slides that we showed, see our slides for Community Design Guideline P1, you will see the full text of the characteristics of the eastern edge. There's also a difference between the characteristics of the district, which is rather large, and the districts, and the character of our neighborhood, which is a small area with small buildings. It is not like the rest of the district, and that's why we have sub-districts within the Northwest Alphabet District. Finally, on the condition of approval that we've requested, because NHA are not owners of the land is part of our concern. They'll be leasing it on a 75-year lease, but we would be more than happy to be flexible. We only picked 60% of MFI because that's what they've been consistently saying. But if they can come up with language that basically gets us to the same place, that it's going to, of an assurance that it will be affordable housing, we would fully support that. We also note that the Landmarks Commission, the language in the decision specifically says, I quote, approve 148 units of affordable housing. So we're just asking council to implement that. And finally, there was talk about the length of the process and so on. There were 3 design advice requests for this proposal. Design advice requests are completely voluntary. It was the applicant that chose to go through those, though we appreciate that they did. And we also would note that until the final hearing, the Landmarks Commission was not reaching a consensus about the buildings, and that often the straw vote was 3-3 or some other proportions. I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Commissioner Saltzman, then Commissioner Fritz.
Perhaps I should ask this of staff, but since you're almost like staff, I'll ask you, and you are representing the neighborhood. And I thought Mr. Schwartz gave a fantastic quote from Art DeMuro.
Yes.
Former member, chair of Landmarks Commission.
And an amazing man.
An amazing man. About being basically content blind in these decisions. Yes. So to me, as long as the building fits the criteria, why should we even be debating, and it's a residential use, which is, you got to be consistent with the zoning. Why should we even be debating the affordable? I mean, the affordable is nice, and we all want it, but I don't see it as being really, in the scheme of things, if I'm listening to what Art DeMuro said, and I've listened to him a lot over the years, why we should be content blind.
I agree, but I think the key word there is should. That we should be blind to the content, but the reality is that we're human, and that there is a dire housing shortage for affordable housing, and that we can't help but be affected by that. We've all talked about how ironic it is that we find ourselves opposing an affordable housing project. We know that it affected the Landmarks Commission because it pervaded their discussion, and it's reflected in their written decision. We know it's affected us, and we don't expect council to ignore that factor either. And we think that in all 3 of our cases, it makes us a little bit less critical of this proposal because we want so much for affordable housing to happen. But by the same token, we don't want to be generous and then something else comes in. Maybe not bigger apartments, but ones that rent for a lot more. And so the condition should in fact be harmless to NHA. It should, as I said earlier, they're not in the business of market rate housing. And so we would like to work with them to craft a condition that will work for them, but that also assures us that it's affordable.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Fritz.
I'm glad you went first because that gave me a chance to look up the code. And thank you, Ms. Richmond, for the appeal, because you're correct. It does say in the Historic Landmarks Commission's decision, it's approved for affordable housing, and then you very helpfully put in the definition from 30.103.0.b regarding what does that mean in city code. So I think it would be helpful in this case if we could get a condition, which I, as Commissioner Daly said, I believe is necessary for that adjustment, that would say what is meant by that. So thank you.
Thank you. Anything
Very
else?
good. Appellant number 2, Mr. Schwartz, if you'd like to
Thank you, Mayor.
come up. Thank you.
I just, let me see if I can plug this in with help with the clerk. I was going to plug in my USB. I know that there was a little bit of confusion last time to get it up and running. Thank you. Somebody's got Panic at the Disco up. That's not mine. Yeah, I guess it would be, the top one right there. Let's see if we can just go down. Can I use this? Thank you. Oh.
And I'll switch to you.
Thank you again, Mayor, Commissioners. I appreciate the time. I just wanted to quickly engage in some rebuttal with regard to the applicant's presentation and also show some additional pictures from a different submission that's in the record. The top photo is south on 18th, heading south. And you can see the Buck Prager to the left-hand side, and you can see the 1940 green apartments that are slated for demolition on the left-hand side as well. The Lutheran Church with Rosehaven, the day shelter for homeless and abused women is right to the right where the first car is, and that's just about 150 feet away or so from Northwest Irving and all the houses on that. I show that just to provide you context. This is Irving from the east side heading north. Just so you know, the north building will be on the left-hand side of the photo. Those trees on the left-hand side of Irving will be taken down, and hopefully there'll be some tree abatement, but that was some discussion. I think that's still up in the air. The landmark units are on the right-hand side, and you can see that that is a 30-foot wide street, and I just present that to you so you get somewhat of a context of how narrow Irving is in relation to the 60-foot building that's slated to be put right where those trees are, about 6 feet in from the right-of-way, from the road. This is another photo from the from the east to the west on Irving. That's the EG1 building that was referenced both by the applicant and BDS staff. And again, the 60-foot north building will be just to the west of that on the left-hand side of the photo. You can see the trees up here that will be slated for demolition, and that's where the project is, which is on the west side of the unit. And again, another photo with the historic landmarks on the right-hand side and the EDG1 on the left-hand side. So I just wanted to present those photos for you, just so you can get a little bit of better context when you're evaluating some of the photos that were presented by the applicant, particularly the north building, which I would argue does not meet the criteria, particularly with regard to D7 and the hierarchy of compatibility. I would say I'm always concerned when individuals talk about, well, we went big and then we came down. To me, as a lawyer, I always regard that as sort of a negotiation tactic. Start high and sort of whittle down. So I would disregard some of that comment, which is that they initially had a 6-story building, but heck, they took off some of it, and therefore this is great. I would say look to their photo, which is referenced in the record of August 10th, 2018. That is the final north building design. Again, put that in reference to the photos that I just put up. There's no doubt that there are 5 to 6 story buildings, as Commissioner Daly and lots of other people have talked about throughout this district. There is no doubt that that's true at all. I would say with regard to the 2015 findings, this body stated that the majority of 4 to 6 story multi-dwelling buildings in the district have deep and well-defined landscape courtyards. This program does not have a deep and well-defined landscape courtyard. All the other buildings that have been presented by individuals like the Worthington or the Wickersham, the American Apartments, they really do have deep courtyards, and it really breaks up the massing. Just for your edification. With regard to the appeal criteria, approval criteria, there was some discussion about how the appeals presented by myself and NWDA talk about how the south and north buildings will overwhelm the Buck Prager. That's not entirely true. Our contention is that there should have been analysis about how it would overwhelm the landmark structures surrounding the site. Again, plenty of context throughout the district for a similar sized building. I get that. I understand that. There is no other context in the state of Oregon for this site with 13 individually listed landmarks surrounding the site, which is really the support for the 2015 findings in which you said that a 46 replacement building was too big. It's because the site itself is so unique, and it is unique. It's one of a kind and the only kind in Oregon. I would say that, there was a lot of discussion about the approval criteria from the applicant, its lawyer, and NHA's new director. Again, that's in a vacuum. You have to think about the 2015 decision, which I've already discussed. There was some discussion about how the approval criteria in 2015 was totally different than used in this matter. That's not true. In 2015, the city government looked at the comprehensive plan, the Northwest District Plan, and the Alphabet Historic District Plan. And with regard to the Northwest District Plan, that informs the community design guidelines of P1. So there was a lot of overlay between the 2015 discussion and the discussion before Portland Historic Landmarks Commission. Again, I put that out there because to me, that is where I come down from, which is there should have been, to me, a fairness aspect. I want you to know quickly, at the final land use decision before landmarks, there were 44 submissions in opposition to the program and 26 submissions in support. Look, there's a lot of people on both sides that have strong opinions. I get that. I can certainly see how landmarks went, but many people do have reservations about the project. All I ask is that you take due care and consideration with regard to this program. Thank you, Mayor.
Very well. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everybody, for your testimony. Unless there's any objection, this will be the end of the public participation portion of this on-the-record hearing.
Could I get they were going to come back with a...
Oh, yeah, the council can still ask questions, have deliberations, whatever you'd like.
The applicant was going to come back with a suggested condition of approval that they could live with, which I would much prefer than trying to make one up myself.
If they so choose.
If they so choose. And to be clear, I'm not asking you to do anything that you don't normally do, so I just wanted to try to define what you normally do, because what you normally do is really good. I just don't want anybody else to come in and use this property for something else.
Could I ask a question of legal counsel while they're setting up? So we've heard testimony with regard to the use of the facility. And the testimony that we've received suggests that that issue is on the table because of the actual findings of the Historic Landmarks Commission. Is that accurate?
So if the applicant is an affordable housing provider. I think that you can see in the way that the application was provided, was approved, that they do discuss it as affordable housing. I believe what Commissioner Fritz was referring to in the findings was the adjustment for the loading dock was based on the assumption that because the units are smaller, they won't need as wide of a loading dock. BDS can speak to what PBOT staff specifically said, which they just talk about the size of the units, not whether or not the price point of the units. But I guess I'm not sure what your question, if your question is whether or not we can talk about whether or not they're affordable, yes. If your question is, does that give us a nexus to impose a condition, I think my advice would be no. The council's authority to impose conditions is based on the applicable approval criteria. So whether or not a finding mentioned the project that was proposed by the applicant as including affordable housing, that's still not the applicable approval criteria.
Okay, that clarifies my question, because my question was related to issue number 2 that you just raised. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, that was actually a helpful lead-in. We would agree with that analysis. And, we do understand the concern about maintaining affordability at this project, but I can't advise my client to voluntarily agree to any additional restrictions on the development, which will, as Charles discussed earlier, make it harder to fund. With respect to the size of the units, Trell and maybe Michelle can actually address this a little bit more, but it is, if assuming the design is approved, the shell of the building is set, and it really isn't, it's just, you couldn't just switch out the inside to move from studio apartments to family-sized apartments without a lot of work.
Why not?
That's probably a question for an architect.
Isn't it just a matter of whether you put the second set of plumbing in and have a door through or not?
Well, for one thing, if the exterior is set, all the windows are set in a specific place, it's not so easy just to put walls wherever you want.
No, you just remove the wall is what the concern is, that instead of having 3 studio apartments, you have connecting doors through interior, and so suddenly you've got a 3-bedroom apartment.
Is it possible? Yes. It is difficult to do when you have a site like this where everything is so tight and decided already. Can I tell you that it absolutely could not happen? No, I can't.
The concern is that I don't think the site... I like the design. Let me be very clear. I like the design. I want to approve this development. I'm concerned about the adjustment for the loading zone, and this is consistent with my 10 years on the council. I think that we get into problems when we don't have places for people to load and unload their stuff. So I'm concerned about that. I was prepared to approve the adjustment based on they're going to be either studio apartment, either if they're going to be if they have to be studios, then they have to be studios. Maybe it's a condition that says they have to be studios. Since you're saying it's going to be difficult to change that anyway, then at least they would be relatively affordable, even if they were market rate. My concern is, as Commissioner Udaley said, consolidating units and having people with their full dining room set and their grand piano.
I mean, I don't know how to address that other than there's the intention of this client and this design team that the proposal that we've shown you today is the proposal that's going forward. Is there a chance that ours doesn't go forward and someone else buys this site or something else? I don't know how to play out all the hypotheticals that you're laying out here, but we are working on a pro forma and looking at funding based on only studio units. That is the intention. That has never been looking at anything else. I think, our concern with the covenant is based on it's already very, very difficult to provide affordable housing, and so to put anything else tied to this project makes lenders very uneasy. And quite frankly, we need as much flexibility as possible in talking to as many lenders as possible to get projects funded.
So as the decision currently says that it's for affordable housing, and it refers in the modification, the adjustment criteria to the studios and the seniors, etc. And then the appeal pointed out that the city's definition of affordable housing is at 80% of median family income, and the neighborhood, the appellants were asking for 60. So is 80%, you said that you don't have any projects that are providing housing at greater than 80%. Is that correct?
That's right.
So that's something that is de facto in the decision.
I would note that the decision also notes that the type of housing proposed, the amount of parking, here I'm quoting page 5, the type of housing proposed, the amount of parking and density are not relevant to the applicable historic resource review criteria. So as we read the decision and the deliberations and all of that, the references to affordable housing were just a
No, I agree with that. I'm talking about the adjustment request, not the historic criteria.
Do we want to?
I mean, I think it's worth saying, and certainly this is a concern, and we respect this concern, but it is worth saying that projects, the multifamily projects, get this adjustment. There are projects within the Alphabet District that have gotten this adjustment that are mixed unit buildings, and again, like, if this is a concern for you, I understand that, but this is not out of keeping with what other projects, multifamily projects, are getting allowed by PBOT.
I'm prepared to make a motion.
Commissioner Saltzman?
I would move to uphold the Landmarks Commission decision.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
Can we request to make tentative findings and?
That's what I was going to say.
That's
That
her
this
job.
is, yes, this is a tentative vote, and we'll talk after the vote about when council would come back to adopt the final findings. Yeah.
Do we have, do we have an opportunity to bring staff back up? I did have a question for
Yeah,
BDS.
we have a motion on the table. We have plenty of time to bring up staff. Thank you.
We're probably going to run out the clock to you, right? Because the current extension
I
is to
believe
the
it's December 30th or December 31st.
So I don't
Yeah.
think we can do it. Does it go into effect immediately after the council votes next time?
Does the decision go into effect?
Yes.
Y-
Or is
yeah.
it the usual 30-day waiting?
Oh, it would be an approved land use decision, and then the parties have 21 days to appeal it to LUBA.
Thank you.
Was it Commissioner Udaly?
Yes, thank you. So I'm just hoping to understand the question about zoning. It was stated earlier that BDS staff discouraged the developer from trying to develop to the full height allowed by the zoning on this lot. Would you say that's a fair characterization?
I would say that there were discussions about compatibility in the district, so it was more to do with maybe a discussion of massing and scale and how that building fits into the district.
So they might have been able to reach the full height if the massing had been changed?
Yeah,
I mean, here's my question. It's a historic district, so there's additional considerations, but we've given it this zoning. So why wouldn't we have just downzoned if we didn't feel building to the full height was appropriate to the neighborhood rather than have a kind of de facto downzoning?
I can speak to that actually because I was there.
I mean,
Because
I'd
I
love to
argued to
understand
downzone it.
Huh?
I argued to downzone it, and my colleagues outvoted me and said that let's just see what they can come up with. And so this is what they've come up with, and I'm actually quite happy with it.
Yeah, I mean, interesting.
But that was the concern was to allow design flexibility, that it was theoretically possible to build it higher if it was skinnier or something.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense. I wasn't here in 2015, so.
Any
It does
further
allow
questions?
them to keep the Buck Prager, right? Because, you know, it's a lower building, and so, and it's an expensive thing to renovate and keep that building, so it's a.
So, legal counsel, I assume you want us to restate Commissioner Saltzman's motion in land use speak. Is that correct?
Yes, and if I may, I did speak with the applicant, and I have a potential condition that might solve issues. I don't know if it would be satisfy everyone's concerns, but I'd like to at least offer it because the applicant has.
I'd love to hear it.
Okay. So understanding that the loading dock is based on the size of the units and hearing that the applicant does not anticipate internal conversions, it could be that if there are internal conversions, which would trigger a building permit, that substantially reduce the number of studio apartments, then an additional land use review would be required of that adjustment. So it's...
They would be willing to have that?
Yes.
I would accept that as a
So,
friendly amendment.
make sure BDS is... Yeah, so we would, yeah, that's true. We would just need to identify what substantially, how many units is reduced. So right now, I think they are proposing 148 units.
Yeah.
So I don't know what council thinks at what point that should trigger. Once there's internal conversions, that would trigger an additional land use review of the loading dock, but 50% reduction. Yeah, I don't know. Okay. Okay. So how many units is in that building? 48. Okay. So there's 48 units, and sorry, I would actually like BDS staff to explain that better because they can speak more to the specifics of the application, where the loading spaces are.
So I'm just going to refer to PBOT's response to the adjustment because it's PBOT that actually, BDS staff looks to PBOT for approving an adjustment to loading. And so I just kind of want to go back to, the north building has 100 units, and so that loading space being provided on the north is for those 100 units in that north building. So the trigger is once you go over 100 units, you need two type Bs. If you're 100 units or less, you need one type B space. So that one type B space meets the loading needs of the north building. So since they're over it, 148, the 48 units, which are not really being served by that loading space because there's a height difference and it won't really work to use that loading bay for the south building and the Buck Prager. The adjustment is really for those 48 units. So I would say you would want to talk to the numbers of those 48 units.
I would be happy with that. And would the applicant be happy with that?
I think what we're trying to identify is whether or not what that substantial reduction would trigger that additional land use review of the loading space. So knowing that you're starting with 48 units, is it when there are fewer than 20 studio apartments? At what point is there a substantial reduction in the studio apartments? And triggering the need for a land use review to look at the adjustment.
Under 40, you wouldn't need a type B space anyway.
So I know we have an expert here, but Jessica, I would suggest you talk to Hillary.
So what I'm hearing from staff is that there's 48 units. Once they get under 40, they wouldn't need that adjustment anyway.
Yes.
So it's somewhere between 40 and 48. If they adjusted it, that doesn't sound like it's a substantial reduction. If they adjusted between 40 and 48, council might not necessarily interpret that as a substantial reduction in the studio apartments that should trigger additional land use review. I mean, that's your
What I'm hearing from the applicants is they have no intention of doing any conversions. So what I'm trying to do is to acknowledge that the neighborhood has expressed this concern, and I think that they have presented their concerns in a very helpful and supportive way that is very respectful of affordable housing and actually they're asking to make sure it happens. So I think it would be very nice if we could get somewhere that they would have in writing that their concerns have been addressed, and I don't really mind exactly what it is.
May I ask a technical question?
No, I'm sorry, because we're in the council deliberations portion of this. I apologize.
May I ask council to ask me if I have any technical questions?
Commissioner Fritz, would you like to ask a question?
It's a nice one.
I just don't think we're allowed to.
Yeah, I have to wait.
I think what you're hearing from the council is we're reluctant
Well,
to
that's what I
reopen the record on this, so I think the answer is respectfully no.
But
Okay, so I'm ready to restate my emotion in the appropriate language.
you have it?
Yeah.
He works fast.
Okay.
Deny the appeals and uphold the Historic Landmarks Commission's decision to approve the requested Block 162 Apartments Historic Review with modifications and adjustments. Case file LU 18-187493 HRM AD.
So not adding any conditions.
It just didn't seem practical.
Yeah, I don't see the need for a condition if we're talking between 48 and 40 apartments.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Udaley.
And I'm sorry, I have to clarify, this is a tentative vote.
Thank you.
And we will take a final vote at a later date that will be determined. When will we determine that date?
We will determine it as soon as you vote, or yes, in the.
Perfect, before
you go
we
anywhere.
go, assuming that the motion carries. Very good. Sorry. Commissioner Udaley.
Thank you. So I do believe approval criteria was met. I don't believe errors were made in the review process, or if there were deviations from that process, that they would have resulted in a different outcome. I want to say on a personal note, like many Portlanders, I am overwhelmed by the rate of change in the city, and I don't like a lot of it. But in this case, I actually think that this is a much more attractive new development that I am seeing on our streets, and that the developer and architect has really gone to great lengths to meet the criteria. And I was actually a little confused by the brick building. I agree, it is so similar to some of the buildings in the neighborhood. I thought that it was an existing building that I remember being there, but it's actually a new one. I think a mixed streetscape is desirable. So whether that's mixed materials or contrast of textures or age of the buildings, heights and depths, like that adds to our built environment. So the fact that it may not be exactly the same as every other block in the district doesn't seem valid to me. Also, I would also love to guarantee that this is affordable housing and remains affordable housing. I have no reason to believe that it won't be. I don't believe that we can put restrictions on it, however, because none of the decisions made by BDS, PBOT, or the Historic Review Committee were contingent upon that affordability. And this would be an acceptable development, whether or not it was affordable. This is, in fact, extremely expensive real estate. The idea that it's going to be developed at 2 stories in keeping with the adjacent contributing structures is just unrealistic. I agree there's a balance to be struck between density, affordability, and preservation. I actually don't think it was perfectly met here because we could have gotten more units. And I don't believe that the developer came in at a higher height as a bargaining tactic, came in as a higher height because they were allowed to come in at a higher height by the existing zoning on the property, and I appreciate everything they've done to meet the requirements of the city. And with that, I vote aye.
Fritz.
First, thanks to Northwest Housing Associates. I'm feeling very happy that, and it was really difficult to say no in 2016. In fact, I was surprised that we got to no in 2016. That building really was out of character with the neighborhood, and this one isn't. This one's really nice. I'm very, very impressed with the work that you've done, and I appreciate that. Also appreciate the Historic Landmarks Commission and their members who worked very, very diligently on this, in some cases under extreme pressure. And so thanks to Hillary Adam and Grace Jeffrey for your support of them and for this decision, which does say that it's for 148 units, new affordable housing units, including 48 senior units and 100 units of affordable workforce housing, and that no field changes are allowed. So I think it's quite clear in the record what's intended. Because it is Northwest Housing Associates, I'm very confident that you are going to get the funding and that this is going to move forward. So thank you very much for all you do for affordable housing, as well as Northwest Pilot Projects and others. I think this is a remarkable project, and I'm looking forward to seeing it done. And I will also say Commissioner Fish is out of the state on personal business, and I know he would say if he was here that he also is relieved that we got here after we said no to the other one, and also that people who live in affordable housing should not have to sacrifice design, and that they get to live in really wonderful places with great design. And I think that's what we're going to get here, so thank you very much. Aye.
Saltzman.
Well, I want to start out by commending the Northwest District Association, Mr. Schwartz. As always, you do outstanding jobs in your presentations, and I appreciate that. I just, in this case, happen to disagree. And I do think, why I disagree is I do think the applicant has done an outstanding job this time around in really making the project look indistinguishable from much of the rest of Northwest Portland, the Alphabet District. And, you know, again, kudos to you for getting the Alphabet District designated as an historical landmark. It really is an outstanding array of largely multifamily developments. But as I saw the pictures being presented by the applicant, I said, wow, that looks just like, you know, the north building looks just like the American Apartments on 21st and Johnson. And in fact, it sounds like they borrowed heavily from that. So it looks and feels a lot like Northwest Portland. And I'm sure once it's built, I'll walk down that street and I won't even notice that it's new construction, or part of it's new construction. So I think that it's, and then as with respect to the condition about requiring it to be 60% affordability, I think part of your concern was that you had a landmarks commission that was running amok with housing affordability. Well, think about that for a second. If you had a council that started attaching conditions to every new residential development saying, by golly, that's got to be 60% affordability, that's not, first of all, that's not fair to the projects that will come before us for approval, but it's probably not wise blanket public policy. And if it's not wise blanket public policy, it's not wise to do it as an individual condition on an individual project. As much as our hearts may all be there, and that may be the problem, is everybody wants to go there, but we have to also remember that it's a very complicated business to build affordable housing. Very complicated. As housing commissioner, I've always been baffled at the ability for these projects to actually break ground and happen, because there's so many complicated funding streams, bank loans, all that stuff. It just baffles me. So I think we landed at a good place. I think this will be a good project, and I hope there doesn't have to be any changes, and I'm pleased to vote aye.
Wheeler.
So today I'm voting based on information that I heard today. Obviously, I was late to the hearing. I was elsewhere conducting city business. Today's vote's a tentative vote. I have read the staff reports. I've reviewed the materials that were provided that were submitted to the council clerk. Of course, prior to taking the final vote, I will review the portion of the hearing that I missed earlier on. However, based on the information that I have heard today, I vote aye. The motion carries. This is a tentative vote. The final vote will be
on December 19th at 10. December 19th at 10:30.
So the final vote of the City Council will be on December 19th, 10:30 a.m., Portland City Hall Council Chamber. Thank you all who testified and provided testimony. We are adjourned.